One evening, a routine bill check revealed a hotel receipt in her purse. My heart pounded. The dates were wrong. Doubt gnawed at me. Then I found an expensive necklace hidden in her drawer, one I didn't buy. Panic set in. I confronted her, but she lied through her teeth. My suspicion grew. Hiring a private investigator, I uncovered the horrifying truth. Photos of her with another man. My world crumbled. Pain twisted into cold, calculating rage. I planned my revenge meticulously. No more trust, only retribution. This is my story. Watch it unfold. It had been a nice evening. There was great talk and some good wine. Since I won the lottery and stopped working to help others, I didn't go out much. But tonight, I chose to go to a charity dinner to raise money for abused animals. I have 2 dogs and care a lot about animals, so it felt like the right thing to do. I'd learned about the charity before and was impressed by what they do. After dinner, I went to the bar for a drink. The 2 main founders of the charity joined me and we shared several glasses of wine. We talked about their success stories. It was touching to hear, but hard for me to understand how anyone could hurt innocent animals. When it was time to go, I received another thank you for my donation and headed to my truck to drive home. You might wonder, why is this wealthy guy in a truck? Well, it's a nice pickup with leather seats and many cool features. I have always liked driving pickups and didn't want a fancy sports car. I never cared about impressing anyone and chose to live a simple life. It was just me and my 2 dogs since my wife had left me. Yes, I was married once, back when I had a landscaping business. Back then, I thought life was perfect and believed my wife was happy too. The day I found out I had the winning lottery ticket, she left me. That morning had been busy. I had just picked up the newspaper from the driveway, tossed it into the seat of my truck, and headed straight to a job site where a big project was happening. The day before, there was a problem with the crew, and the foreman asked me to come help. I spent most of the day working with them, and by around 2 in the afternoon, everything was running smoothly again. I told the foreman I needed to return to my office to make some calls. I arrived back at the office around 2:30 and spoke with the woman I hired as the office manager. Luckily, there were no big problems, just a few phone calls to suppliers to make sure deliveries would be on time. By 3:30, I had some free time, so I took a break and grabbed the newspaper I had brought with me to check my lottery numbers. I bought a ticket for each lottery draw, but until now, I had only matched 3 numbers, which won me $3. I wasn't really expecting to win, but I liked to try my luck with a $1 ticket. This week, I decided to do something different. Instead of buying a state lottery ticket, I spent a little extra on a multi-state Powerball ticket because the prize was very big. I turned to the page with the winning numbers, opened my desk drawer, and took out the ticket I bought the day before. While I sipped my Coke, I laid the ticket next to the winning numbers and started to compare them. When I saw that the first 3 numbers matched, I thought, yes, at least I can cash it in for $1 profit. Then I saw that the 4th number matched too. This was even better, maybe about $50 or $60. I was shocked when I realized the first 5 numbers matched. Wow, this could be worth $1,000. And then the 6th number matched as well. My hands started to shake. This ticket was going to be worth a lot of money. Just 1 number left, the Powerball. For a moment, my vision blurred and I felt dizzy. When I looked again, the numbers matched. As my sight cleared, I thought I must have made a mistake. So I checked again and then again. It was no mistake. I had picked all the right numbers. The paper said only 1 ticket matched them all, and I was holding it nervously in my hands. We were rich. My wife and I, that is, for the next 20 minutes. I just sat at my desk, feeling dazed, trying to think about what to do next. I thought, how about a financial advisor? Yes, that's a good idea. I really needed some good advice about this unexpected money. But first, I had to tell my wife. What time was it? A little after 4. She would be home soon from her job at the bank. This was not something I could just mention over the phone. I had to tell her face to face. I jumped up from my desk and hurried out to my truck. I told my office manager I needed to take care of something at home and that I would see her tomorrow. When I arrived home early, Jenny would be surprised because I usually worked late. But when I told her about the winning ticket, she would be so happy. On the drive home, I imagined all the wonderful things we could do, travel around, see new places. I couldn't wait to share the news with her. But when I pulled up to our house, I saw her with another man putting suitcases into a car I didn't recognize. What was happening? I hit the brakes hard and stopped by the curb. I jumped out of my truck. "Jenny, what are you doing?" To her credit, she looked a bit embarrassed. I heard her tell the man she was with to wait in the car. Then she walked over to me and said, "I'm sorry, Michael, but I'm leaving." When she called me Michael, I knew it wasn't good. She only used my full name when she was upset or had bad news. "Leaving? What do you mean you're leaving?" "Michael, I care about you, but I want more from life. I've met someone else who can give me what I want. You can't." "I'm sorry. I left you a letter inside. I didn't want to tell you in person." "But Jenny, I thought you loved me. I thought you were happy." "I'm sorry," she whispered, then ran to the car and jumped in. I stood there, shocked, watching them drive away. I felt so confused that I didn't know how to respond. My vision blurred and I felt dizzy. I stood there for about 5 minutes looking at the spot where the car had gone down the street. I shook my head to clear my thoughts. Then I turned and walked slowly to my house. Once inside, I went straight to the liquor cabinet. I took a bottle of tequila and drank a big gulp. The drink burned as it went down, but I took another swig, then a third. Each one felt easier. I drank a lot before I remembered she had talked about a letter. By that point, I was feeling pretty tipsy and didn't think I could read it. It could wait. I stumbled upstairs and jumped in the shower. I just stood there, letting the hot water run over me until it ran out. When I got out, I was looking for my drink, not even bothering to dry myself. I found the bottle again and fell onto my bed, hoping to feel numb from the alcohol. After finishing the rest of the bottle, I finally passed out. The next morning, I felt terrible and was not ready to go to work. I called the office and said I had some things to take care of. Being the owner, I could do that. With my spinning head and upset stomach, I made my way to the kitchen and saw a letter with 2 rings on top of it. The events from yesterday flooded back to me, and I ran to the sink to throw up what little I had left. With an empty stomach, I went to the coffee maker and got it brewing. I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope with the rings on top. Oh, God, I thought. Where did I go wrong? I still couldn't reach for the letter. I waited while the coffee brewed, filling a large cup. After 2 more cups, I finally reached out and picked up the envelope, pushing the rings to the side. I opened it, and inside I found her letter. She said that she loved me but needed more from her life. There were also divorce papers signed. She had left everything to me, except for what she took with her. She clearly thought what we had wasn't worth fighting for. So be it. I hadn't told her much about how my business was doing since she didn't seem to care. That should have been my first hint, but I just assumed she wasn't interested in the landscaping business. We were doing fine. My company brought in a good paycheck. Maybe if I had told her about the buyout offer from a big company, she wouldn't think so little of me. In her letter, she said that the man she left me for had gotten a job as a bank vice president in another state. They were leaving that day and wouldn't be back. She said she was sorry for doing this to me but needed to do it for herself and hoped I would understand. Understand? What I understood was that I had married someone who cared more about things than feelings. Fine. If that's how she wanted it, I would make sure she didn't find out about my lottery winnings until it was too late for her to change her mind about the divorce or come back asking for forgiveness. She took my love and threw it away, leaving me for another man. I would never take her back. As my sadness turned to anger, my mind began to think clearly again. The first thing I had to do was keep the lottery ticket safe until I could cash it. So I went upstairs and got ready for a trip to the bank. I put the ticket in my safe deposit box. While I was there, I closed our joint account and opened a new one just in my name. I did the same with our credit cards. Better to be careful. She might try to come back and take money from our accounts. My next stop was to see my lawyer, even though he didn't work on family law. He said he could file the divorce papers if I agreed to the terms. Then I told him about the buyout offer from my business and asked if he could represent me if we set a few conditions. He said he would help. My third stop was a realtor to put my house up for sale. I wasn't sure what I would do after everything was settled, but I knew I didn't want to stay in that house filled with memories of my broken marriage. It was no longer a home. It was just a place where happy moments used to be. There had been a time when I thought my life was perfect. Feeling ready to start fresh, I went home to a warm welcome from my dogs. At least I knew their love for me was real. I fed them and then took them out for a nice long walk. I have to say the smaller dog was my favorite. She would zoom back and forth, sniffing everything and barking at butterflies. Then she would run back to me, looking for my praise. Her playful antics made me smile. For a little while, I could forget my troubles and just enjoy being with my dogs. When I got home, I went to my office and checked my email. Nothing important needed my attention, so I decided to go to bed early. I was still feeling a bit sick from drinking too much the night before. I climbed into bed and fell asleep quickly. The next few weeks went by fast. I was busy running my company and dealing with a business that wanted to buy it. In the end, I was happy with the deal. They agreed to keep my employees for 6 months to see how they did. I thought most of them would keep their jobs because they were good workers. I stayed on for 2 weeks to help with the change. Everything went well, but the last day was hard. My employees threw me a goodbye party. So many sad faces were there and heartfelt goodbyes. I had become close to many of them, and it felt nice to know I would be missed. All this took almost 3 months. Meanwhile, I accepted an offer on my house and agreed to move out 2 weeks after selling my company. The only big thing left was my divorce. I went to my lawyer to see if we could speed up the process. He said he would try. He got in touch with my wife's lawyer, who spoke with her. She wanted to move things along, too. The lawyers asked the court for an early meeting. The judge, whom I knew from a job I did for him in landscaping, agreed to hear our case. He listened to both of us and decided to finalize the divorce in just 1 week. As long as the terms stayed the same, my soon-to-be ex-wife, Jenny, had left the state and could not claim any of my possessions. I wanted the divorce to be quick for a good reason. I had won the lottery and only had 6 months to cash in the money. If the divorce took too long, Jenny might try to take more from me or even come back. I needed the divorce finished before I could claim my winnings. A week later, when the divorce was done, I felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. That night, I called my sister Melinda, or Mel for short. She was my only close family since our parents had died in a car crash while I was in college. Mel and I had always been close. I hadn't called her earlier because I didn't want to worry her. "Hey sis, it's me," I said when she answered. "Mike, it's great to hear from you. I thought you forgot you had a sister," she joked. "Sorry, Mel. Things have been crazy, but they're getting better now." As always, she could tell something was wrong. "Okay, baby brother, tell me what's up. What's wrong?" she asked with concern. "I have good news and bad news." I paused. "The bad news is that Jenny and I are divorced." She gasped. "Oh no, Mike, what happened?" I explained how I came home to find Jenny with another man. I told her about the short talk we had and the divorce papers she left. I didn't mention the tequila. When I finished, my sister spoke up. "That woman. If I ever see her, I'll let her know what I think." For the first time in a while, I laughed. Mel was always protective of me. "I'm so sorry, Mike. I know you loved her, but you said you had good news. What is it?" I replied, "Before I tell you, you have to promise not to tell anyone. Do you promise? Please don't tell George about this yet. George is Mel's husband and the father of their 2 wonderful, sometimes playful daughters. I really admired their relationship. Everyone could see how much they loved each other and their kids." "Mike, you know I don't keep secrets from George," Mel said firmly. "I know, Mel, but this is about me, not you. It will all come out soon. Just keep it quiet for a little while, please." She sighed and replied, "Okay, Mike, I'll keep your secret, but I don't like hiding things from George." "I understand, sis. Just for a couple of days." "Do you remember the big Powerball jackpot from about 4 months ago?" I asked. "Of course. I even bought a ticket. I only heard that one ticket won, but I never found out who took it." I paused and then said, "I had to wait for my divorce to be finished before I could claim the prize." "What are you saying? You have the winning ticket?" she exclaimed. In the background, I heard George's voice. "Is everything okay, honey?" "Yes and no, dear," she said. "It's Mike on the phone. I'll explain later, but right now he needs a friend." "All right, tell your brother I said hello." "George says hi," I whispered to Mel. "I can't believe you have the winning ticket," she said. "Believe it, sis. I will claim the prize the day after tomorrow. I've been talking to a money expert about how to handle it. I just need to finish a few things tomorrow. I sold my company and house. I don't have ties here anymore. Can I come visit you for a while? I asked. I heard her happy scream. Yes, little brother, we would love to see you. Please come. Then I heard my nieces asking if everything was okay. Yes, it's your Uncle Mike. He's coming for a visit. Their cheers made me smile. As you can hear, we're all excited to have you. How soon can you get here? I have a flight to Austin for the day after tomorrow. I'll go to the lottery office that morning, then catch my flight that lands at 7:15 p.m. on Friday. I told her I shared my flight details, and she promised to pick me up at the airport. That night, I slept better than I had in months. I was excited to see my sister, my nieces, and George. He was a good husband and father, and he made my sister very happy. Her happiness meant a lot to me. Finally, on Friday morning, I waited outside the lottery office. Winning the prize was more complicated than just handing over the ticket and getting a check. There was a lot of paperwork and a press event. The jackpot was over $265 million. The Powerball team wanted to advertise the game. I decided to take the money over 20 years, which meant I would get more than $13 million each year. That was a lot for someone who came from a humble background. I wished my parents were here to see my good luck. Even after paying taxes, I had plenty. After the press meeting, I said I had a flight to catch and went back to the motel where I had stayed since selling my house. I packed my bags and put my dogs in the truck. My first stop was my old landscaping company to pick up Antonio. He was my first worker and had stayed with me during hard times. I planned to give him my truck and a surprise bonus. Instead of going to the busy airport, we went to a small private one. I found a charter flight to Austin that let me keep my dogs with me. I didn't want them flying alone. I handed Antonio the keys and title to the truck. We both had tears in our eyes as we said goodbye. I gave him an envelope with the surprise bonus for his loyalty. As I walked to the plane, I heard him call out, "Boss, boss!" He ran toward me with tears in his eyes and hugged me. "Thank you, boss. Thank you." He opened the envelope and saw the check for $100,000. Standing tall, he said, "Go with God," and walked away with a smile. I boarded the plane and sat near my dogs. The pilot said other passengers would come soon, and we would take off on time. I thanked him and took out my Sudoku puzzle book from my bag. I always liked doing crossword puzzles and Sudoku when I had some free time. After about 15 minutes, a big car pulled up beside the small jet that was ready to fly us to Austin. A well-dressed older man and a young girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, got out and stepped onto the plane. The pilot welcomed them warmly, which made me think they had flown this route before. The man introduced the girl to the pilot as his granddaughter, saying she had been visiting and was now going back home to Austin. As they sat down, the older man nodded at me and the little girl smiled shyly. I think I was seated at the back of the small jet because of the dogs. The front was left for the main passenger. Once we all had our seatbelts on, the plane moved onto the runway. When the pilot picked up speed and took off, the quick change made my small dog, Susie, yip. Hearing this, the little girl turned around, her eyes wide, trying to find where the sound came from. I smiled at her and leaned over to soothe Susie, saying it would be all right as she peered through the front of her carrier. Susie calmed down a bit, even though she still looked a little nervous. Once we were flying smoothly, the pilot came back and said we could move around. I went back to my Sudoku puzzle while I could hear the soft chatter between the girl and her grandfather. After a few minutes, the girl stood up and shyly walked over to me, stopping a few steps away. She said, "My name is Mary. Can I see your puppy?" "Hello, Mary. My name is Mike. I have 2 dogs. The little one in front is Susie, and that's Toby behind her," I replied. "You're welcome to talk to them if you want." Mary's face lit up and she knelt down in front of Susie's carrier, talking sweetly to her. Both my dogs were wonderful with kids, which often surprised me since my wife Jenny and I didn't have children. When Mary talked to Susie, the little dog stood up and wagged her tail, giving a few happy yips. Mary looked at me with bright, hopeful eyes. "I think she wants to come out and play," she said. I chuckled softly. I'm sure she would love to, but the airline made me promise to keep her in the carrier. Mary thought for a moment and ran back to her grandfather. They talked excitedly for a bit before the older man came back to me. He held out his hand and said, "I'm Tom Laughlin." The name sounded familiar. Then I remembered he was the owner of Laughlin Enterprises, a big company that works with airplanes. I stood up and shook his hand. "I'm Mike Johnson. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Laughlin. Thank you for letting me join your flight." He looked at me closely for a moment, then smiled. "Well, this isn't exactly my plane. I rent flights from this company instead of buying my own. Anyway, it seems my granddaughter likes your dogs," he said, smiling. "Well, they probably like her too," I chuckled. "They're great with kids," he asked. "Really?" I nodded. "Oh yes, they love getting attention. I know your granddaughter wants to play with them, but the airline made me promise to keep them in their carriers." Tom nodded and went to talk to the pilot. After a few minutes, the pilot came back to me. "Mr. Johnson, thank you for following the rules about pets on board. We want to make sure other passengers are not bothered. But Mr. Laughlin said we can make an exception if you promise me the dogs won't bite." I laughed. "No, they might try to lick you silly if they're happy, but they've never bitten anyone." The pilot smiled and went back to the cockpit. Mr. Laughlin whispered to his granddaughter, who hugged him tight. Then she ran back to me, clapping her hands with joy. "Grandpa says it's okay if you let them out. Please. I just know they are sad being locked up." I smiled. Okay, you win. Let's open their doors and let them out." The dogs seemed to know that Mary had helped them. They jumped up and covered her with licks, making her laugh. Watching them play made the time pass quickly. Soon, the pilot told us to get ready for landing. Mary gave each dog a kiss before I put them back in their carriers. We arrived at a small airport close to my sister's house. I felt happy because my sister and her family wouldn't have to drive far through traffic to pick me up. I noticed 2 SUVs pull up next to the plane. A couple who looked like they were my age got out. They must be Mary's parents, I thought. I watched my sister and her family step off the plane. I needed to carry the dogs, so I let Mr. Laughlin and his granddaughter go ahead first. Mary quickly ran back to my seat and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Thank you for letting me play with your dogs, Mr. Johnson," she said. "You're welcome, Mary. Thank you for keeping them happy." Mary giggled and ran back to her grandfather, holding his hand as they walked down the stairs. I picked up the pet carriers and walked to the exit. Outside, I heard little girls squealing. When I stepped out, I saw my nieces jumping up and down with Mary. They were clearly excited and knew each other. Mary asked them what they were doing at the airport, and I heard them mention their Uncle Mike. As I reached the bottom of the steps, they spotted me and rushed over. I quickly set down the pet carriers and knelt to hug them. We exchanged kisses on the cheeks, and the girls started talking so fast I couldn't understand them. "Girls, give your Uncle Mike a moment to breathe," my sister said. The girls giggled and stepped back, letting their mom come forward. She hugged me tightly. "I'm so glad you're here, baby brother." "Me too, sis. Me too." After a quick hug, she stepped back, and George came over to shake my hand. "I'm so sorry about Jenny. I can't believe she did that to you." "Neither can I, George. I never saw it coming," I replied. My nieces were still excited, jumping up and down. "What's got you girls so excited?" I asked. "We saw you on TV just before we came to get you," said Jenny, the older of my nieces. "Oh no," I groaned. I really hoped the story wouldn't be on every news channel. Lisa, who was with her parents, asked why I was on TV. My nieces tried to tell her that I had won the Powerball. This made the parents laugh. Lisa's dad came over, shook my hand, and congratulated me. He said they had seen the same story. After saying hello, we loaded up the car and headed to my sister's house. The girls wanted me to sit between them in the back seat, each holding one of my dogs. The ride was fun and filled with chatter. I learned that my nieces and Lisa went to the same school, and Jeannie and Lisa were in the same grade. Missy, the younger niece, was 1 year behind Jeannie. I caught up on what had happened with my sister's family over the past year. We all laughed when Missy asked if I brought the ball I won. I explained, and she understood that I had won the lottery and there wasn't an actual ball. Soon we arrived at their house, which was a big 2-story ranch. George had a good job at a tech company, and my sister Mel ran a daycare center. Their house was on 5 acres of beautiful Texas hills. Even though George's drive to work was long, they loved this place for raising their daughters. George helped me with my bags as the girls showed me the way to the guest room. It was cozy with a Western look and had its own bathroom. The dogs jumped on the bed right away, which made my nieces giggle. After I settled in and took a quick shower, I went downstairs to join the family in the living room. I sat in a comfy chair, and soon I had two little girls bouncing on my lap. "Girls, don't hurt your uncle on his first night here," Mel said, smiling. "I'll be fine, sis," I replied. I didn't realize how much I missed everyone after the last 4 months. I forgot how nice it is to be with family. I hugged the girls tightly, and they squealed with joy. I saw tears in my sister's eyes. After 20 minutes of tickling and laughing, she stood up and said, "Bedtime, girls, come on. Your uncle will be here in the morning, too." With some groans and rolled eyes, the girls jumped off my lap, kissed me on the cheek, and ran to their rooms, giggling as their mom chased them. George and I sat back to watch the news, just as the story about my big win started. My sister came back in, and we watched quietly. When the story ended, Mel turned off the TV. "So, little brother, now that you're a millionaire, what are your plans?" she asked. I sat quietly for a few minutes thinking. "Honestly, sis, I don't know. I need some time to figure things out. This feels like both a nightmare and a dream come true. If you guys can put up with me for a few days, maybe I can figure out what to do next." My sister's tears fell freely. She sat on my lap and wrapped her arms around me like Mom used to do. George walked over and placed a hand on my shoulder. "Mike, this is your home now," he said. "You are welcome here for as long as you want." Mel smiled and said, "Honey, I have to be up early tomorrow. Good night, Mike. See you tomorrow." With shiny eyes, I looked up at George. "Thanks, George. Your words mean a lot to me." Mel got up from my lap and stood next to her husband. "Bed sounds good. I'll be with you in a few minutes." George kissed her quickly and left. "I'm sure you're ready for bed too, little brother. I know it's been a long day." Trying not to yawn, I stood up from the chair. "Yes, you're right, it's been a long day. Bed does sound great, but first I want to thank you and George for being here for me. Don't be silly, of course we're here for you. You're family and we love you. You can stay with us as long as you want. Always remember, brother, if I have a home, you have one too. Thanks again, Mel. Oh, one more thing. Now that I know my win is on TV, I'm worried." When my sister heard my ex-wife's name, she looked really upset. "Don't worry, Mike. If she calls, I'll take care of it." Then we both went to bed. I felt calmer than I had in a long time. It was nice to be around my caring family. The next few weeks went by quickly. I spent my days relaxing by the pool and working out in their home gym. My sister cooks really well, so I needed the gym to stay fit on weekends. George and I went fishing, which I loved but never had time for because of my old job. One morning, as I walked downstairs, I heard my sister talking on the phone. "Listen to me, you liar. I don't know where my brother is. Even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. He called to say he's on a long cruise and will be gone for a year. Don't call here again." I was shocked. My sweet sister never spoke like that. She always looked out for those she loved. When she heard me gasp, she turned around with red cheeks. "You were right, Mike. She must have heard something and is trying to find you. I hope she believes my story about the cruise and stops looking for you here. Sorry for my words." I laughed and hugged her. "You did great. You said exactly what I would have." As the days passed, I started to really like the hill country. I decided I wanted to stay near my family. I began looking for a place to buy, but didn't tell anyone yet. One morning, while George and Mel were at work and the kids were at school, I was drinking coffee in a local cafe when I heard two men talking. One man was saying he was selling some land. The other man said it would sell quickly because it was next to the lake. I got curious and approached them. "Hi, I'm Mike. I heard you talking about land for sale. Can you tell me more?" "Sure," the man said. "It's nearby, 50 acres with lakefront access." "Are you interested?" he asked. "I might be. I'm thinking about settling down here. Can I see the land?" "Of course," he replied. "If you're free now, I can show you. I'm Jim Henley." "Mike Johnson?" I said, shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you." I told him I had some time to look at the land. We decided I would follow him. I felt happy when we stopped at a gate just a few miles from my sister's house. He unlocked it and walked back to my car. "Why don't you park here and ride with me? I'll show you around." "Sounds good," I replied, turning off the engine. I got out and got into his truck. "First, we'll go to a hilltop in the middle. You can see most of the land from there." As we drove, he asked why I came here. I told him about my sister living nearby and how much I liked the area. I didn't say anything about winning the lottery. When we reached the hilltop, we got out. The view was beautiful. He pointed out the property lines and then suggested we go down to the lake. We stopped at a little cove surrounded by rocks with a small part of the lake coming in. "The water is deep here. It would be a great spot for a boat dock," Jim said. I agreed, picturing a dock there. On the way back, Jim stopped at a few more nice spots. Then he took me back to the gate. He gave me a business card and wrote something on the back. "This is the general price I'm asking. My phone number is on the other side. If you're interested, give me a call after you think it over," he said. I thanked him and promised I would call after discussing it with my sister and her family. While driving back to my sister's house, I felt excited about buying the property. The idea of the cove and a boat dock made it even more tempting. Fishing would be much easier too. That evening, I stayed quiet during dinner. Right before we finished, I said, "Hey everyone, after we clean up, can we talk?" Mel looked at me with curiosity. "Sure, Mike, we can go to the den. Girls, can you help me clear the dishes?" George and I went to the den. He gave me a beer and we talked about the weather until my sister and nieces came in. My sister sat next to her husband and asked, "Is something wrong?" "No, everything's fine," I said. "I've really enjoyed my time here. I love this place. I'm thinking about moving here. What do you all think?" My nieces clapped and cheered. "Yes, yes," Mel smiled. "That would be great, Mike. I was hoping you'd stay." "Have you found a place you like?" George asked. "Yes, I have," I replied, telling them about meeting Jim and seeing his property. George's eyes lit up when I mentioned the cove. "Perfect for a boat!" I told him he could park his boat there too. George had a nice fishing boat at an expensive marina. This new spot would be much closer. My sister shook her head and smiled. Boys and their toys. But she enjoyed going out on the lake with George. After the girls went to bed, I asked if they knew someone who could tell me if Jim's price was fair. I didn't know the property values here. Mel said she was friends with the real estate agent who helped them buy their house. She said the agent could help me. That night, I went to bed thinking about what kind of house I would build. The next evening, Mel told me she talked to her friend, the agent. She suggested we all see the property on Saturday if I could set it up with Jim. I said I would call him. After dinner, I called Jim. "Jim, it's Mike Johnson. I'm interested in the property, but I want my family to see it too. Can we tour it on Saturday?" Jim replied, "Mike, my wife and I will be out of town on Saturday, but if you meet me at the cafe in the morning, I'll give you the key to the gate. You can show them around. How does that sound?" "Sounds great, Jim. I'll see you in the morning." I told Mel about the plan, and we agreed to visit the property on Saturday. On the day of the tour, Mel's friend Renee joined us. We got into the SUV and drove to the property. We first stopped at the hilltop, got out, and enjoyed the view. It was just as beautiful as I remembered. Everyone was impressed. Then we headed down to the cove. George and I talked about a boat dock while my nieces played on the beach. My sister made a picnic and we agreed that the cove would be a nice place to eat while we got lunch ready. I talked to Renee about the price. She thought it was a little high but fair because of the view of the lake. That made me decide to go for it. I planned to call Jim on Monday to start the process. 2 weeks later, I owned 50 acres of beautiful Texas hills. I picked a spot on the hill with a great view to build my house. Renee helped me find a builder. I met 4 builders and chose one. I shared my ideas for the house with him. I wanted 2 floors, 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a dining room, a living room, and a game room downstairs. Upstairs, there would be the main bedroom with an office, a sitting area, and a home gym. Outside, I wanted a pool that looked over the hills and a hot tub. The builder listened to my ideas. After a few weeks, he came up with a plan. With a few small changes, the blueprints were ready and we could start building. I wanted a friendly house for the environment, so I made sure to use great insulation and chose triple-pane windows. I arranged for a wind turbine on a nearby hill and solar panels on the roof. For drinking water, I planned to collect rainwater and use a pump from the lake for the garden. It cost a lot to set up, but I knew it would save money later. Plus, it felt good to be kind to the planet. For the next 10 months, I visited the site every day to see how things were going. I also learned about local plants because I wanted to design the yard myself. The first thing finished was the floating boat dock, and George happily moved his boat there from the marina. Finally, the house was done. After a final check, which I approved, all that was left was the yard work. I hired a local company and gave them my plans. A week later, the yard was finished. My sister helped me pick out furniture, and we got everything delivered and set up. She has a good eye for style, and since we grew up together, she knew how to make me feel at home. I was all set to move into my new house. It cost a lot and used up a big part of my lottery money from last year, but it was worth it. Almost a year had gone by since I won, and soon I would get my next payment. I kept my sister and her family away for the last month so I could surprise them with the finished house. The day finally came to move in. I loaded my stuff into the pickup truck I bought. My sister and her family followed me when we arrived. The look on their faces was priceless. They were shocked. The house, with its wooden walls and natural stone, matched the scenery perfectly. We walked around the house and the girls were amazed. I showed them their rooms in case they ever wanted to stay over. Next, we went out to the back deck, which overlooked the pool and hot tub. George loved the new barbecue I had set up. I wanted my family to be there on my first night, so I asked them to stay. They lived just 2 miles away, but this night meant a lot to me. Mel took the girls to the store to buy food for my kitchen and some nice steaks for the barbecue, which everyone loved while they were out. George and I walked down to the boat dock to check on his boat. Then we sat on the deck, drinking some beers and watching my dogs explore their new yard. I only landscaped about an acre around the house and put up a fence to keep the dogs safe. The pool and hot tub were also fenced in to prevent any accidents. When the girls returned with the groceries, we spent an hour bringing them inside and putting them away. Mel did a fantastic job of making sure I had everything I needed, including pots, pans, forks, and plates for our lunch. Mel and the girls made us sandwiches and chips, which we ate on the deck as the day got warmer. My nieces wanted to swim, so I told them to put on their swimsuits. I watched them happily run off to change. George, Mel, and I were sitting outside on the deck enjoying our drinks and watching the kids play. Later, Mel and I moved to the kitchen. She made a salad and some sides while I got the meat ready for the barbecue. About 45 minutes later, we all gathered to eat. The steaks tasted really good, if I say so. After dinner, we cleaned up the kitchen and then went to the game room to watch my nieces play video games on my new big TV. George said, "Mike, you did a great job with your home. You must be very proud." I replied, "I am, but I couldn't have done it without your help and support over the past year. And my sister deserves all the praise for making it look so nice," I said, noticing her blush. "I can never repay you for your kindness." "Oh, my dear brother," my sister said with tears in her eyes. "We did it out of love. It was a gift, not something you owe us." "I'm really grateful to both of you," I said. "How about we put the girls to bed and unwind in the hot tub?" We spent an hour relaxing in the warm water under the stars before we all agreed it was time for bed. As I climbed the stairs to my room, I peeked in on my nieces. They were fast asleep, each with a dog cuddled up beside them. That night, I slept deeply and woke up to the smell of breakfast. I put on my robe and headed to the kitchen. My sister was busy cooking a big meal. There were eggs, ham, sausage, hash browns, toast, and juice. It felt like a feast, and I felt like a king in my new home. After breakfast, my sister and her family went back home. The house felt very quiet once they left. I realized that living alone would take some time to adjust to. My dogs came over and sat by my feet. "All right, how about we go explore?" I said. We spent the day wandering around my new property. A couple of weeks later, my lottery winnings from last year were added to my account. It was time to think about what I wanted to do with my time and money. The last year was full of work because I was building my house, but now I had some free time. I still wanted to visit my sister and attend my niece's soccer games. However, I was looking for something meaningful to do. I thought about giving some of my money to good causes, so I started to look for ones that needed help. This brings us back to the beginning of my story. That's how I found myself at a charity dinner for animals in need. During my first year in my new home, I spent time finding good causes and donating money, often without telling anyone it was me. Sometimes I went to events. I often felt lonely with just my dogs, even though my sister and her family came to visit a lot. I still felt hurt because my ex-wife had been unfaithful to me. I wasn't looking for a new partner because I didn't trust women anymore. So I used these events to get out and meet new people. One night on my way home, I stopped at a red light under a freeway. It was late, and I wanted to listen to the radio before going home. Suddenly, I heard a woman screaming. I looked around and saw two men bothering a woman in the dark. Without thinking too much, I reached under my seat and grabbed my gun. I had a license to carry it. With the gun hidden behind my back, I got out of my truck and walked toward them. When I was about 15 feet away, I shouted, "Leave the lady alone!" One of the men turned and growled at me. I repeated, "Mind your own business. Leave the lady alone." One of the men started to walk toward me. I told him, "I said to mind your own business." He stopped when he saw me raise my gun and point it near his face. "Whoa, buddy, we were just leaving. Don't do anything crazy," he said, backing away. The other man saw the gun and let go of the woman. He ran off. The man next to me turned and ran away too. Once I saw there was no more danger, I put the gun in my waistband and walked over to the woman who was on the ground crying. I knelt down and spoke softly. "You should come with me. It's not safe here." She looked up at me and said, "What?" I replied, "Come with me. I'll get you to a safe place before they come back." My daughter pointed up the hill. I looked and saw dark shapes up there. As I walked closer, I heard a little girl whimpering. She was hiding behind some bags. She looked scared. I spoke softly. "It's okay, sweetheart. Go to your mother. I'll get your things and take you somewhere safe." The little girl ran to her mom. I picked up the bags and walked back to them. I told them to get in my truck. They followed me, looking confused. I threw the bags in the truck bed and drove off quickly. I wanted to leave before those men came back with friends. "Do you want me to take you to the police?" I asked. The mother gasped. "No, please, no police." "Okay," I said. "Is there anywhere else safe I can take you?" She shook her head and looked down. "How about a shelter for women?" I asked. "No, he might have someone watching there." "Who is he?" I asked. "My boyfriend. He hurt me and threatened to harm my daughter." I felt unsure about what I was getting into, but I knew I couldn't leave them. "I know a place where you'll be safe for the night. I'll take you there. In the morning, we can think of a plan." I just wanted to make sure they were safe. The drive home took about 40 minutes. After 20 minutes, I looked at them. They were both asleep. They must have been running for a long time. Another 20 minutes passed, and we arrived at my garage. I turned off the engine. The mother woke up and looked around, scared. "It's okay. This is my home. You'll be safe here tonight, I promise," I said. She stared at my face for a moment, then nodded. She had no reason to trust me, but she had no choice. I got out and opened the passenger door. The mother gently shook her daughter. "Lisa, honey, wake up. We have to get out now." "Where are we, Mama?" Lisa asked. "We're at this kind man's house. He will keep us safe tonight," the mother said, looking at me with hopeful eyes. "That's right, little one. Let's go inside and get you something to eat." "I bet you're hungry," I said softly. Lisa nodded and turned red, looking at her mother. "Okay, follow me to the kitchen," I said. I led them to the door and watched as they got out of the truck. My two dogs ran out, wagging their tails. "Yip, yip!" Lisa jumped back a little, surprised by the new guests, hiding behind her mom. My dogs ran over to say hello. "Don't worry, Lisa," I told her. "They just want to play. They really like kids." Lisa peeked around her mom's legs and noticed Toby. He was a funny dog. He lay on his back with his legs in the air, wanting a belly rub. Susie, the other dog, saw that Lisa looked a bit scared, so she lay down and crawled slowly toward her. When Susie looked up with her big, soft eyes, nobody could say no. Lisa slowly reached her hand out to Susie, but just as she was about to touch her, Susie jumped up and gave Lisa a big, wet kiss. Lisa squealed. Susie ran in a quick circle around Lisa and her mom, then lay down again and crawled forward. Lisa got over her surprise and started to giggle. She reached out again, but again, just before Lisa could pet her, Susie jumped up for another wet kiss. This time, Lisa squealed with happiness, laughing and clapping her hands. I glanced over and saw Lisa's mom kneeling to scratch Toby's belly. He loved it. Susie ran around Lisa and her mom again, but this time, she stopped right in front of Lisa, panting happily. Lisa bent down again, and this time, Susie let her pet her. I watched them for a few minutes and then called the dogs to come inside. One thing I was proud of was how well they listened, and this time was no different. They stayed just a few steps ahead as we walked to the kitchen. On the way, I showed my guests the bathroom and told them they could wash their hands and then meet me in the kitchen. As I opened the fridge, I saw a big pot of homemade chicken soup that Mel had brought over yesterday. I put it on the stove to heat up and took out a loaf of French bread. I cut some thick pieces of bread and spread butter on them before putting them in the toaster. Then I took 2 bowls and 2 spoons and placed them on the table. Just as the soup began to bubble, I heard my guests enter the room. "Please have a seat, ladies, the soup is ready," I said. I took a ladle, filled it with soup, and carried it to the table. I set the pot on a hot pad and filled each bowl generously, putting them in front of Lisa and her mom. Next, I brought the toasted bread and set it between them. I asked what drinks they wanted. They picked juice for the mom and milk for Lisa while I served the soup and drinks. As I did this, I noticed that both looked a little thin, like they hadn't been eating well. Their eyes seemed tired and a bit scared. Lisa's mom kept looking around as if she was worried something would happen. I could tell they were not used to being watched while eating. "Ladies, I need to check my email. I'll be in the next room if you need anything. Eat as much as you like, and when you are finished, I'll show you to a room where you can sleep," I said, leaving them to eat in peace. As I walked out, Lisa's mom said, "Thank you, Mr. Mike." I replied, "Just call me Mike. What's your name?" She answered, "Elizabeth, but everyone calls me Beth." I smiled and said, "Well, Beth, I hope you like the soup." I turned to leave. In the next room, I heard Lisa tell her mom, "Wow, Mom, this is the best chicken soup I've ever tasted." "Yes, it is very good, isn't it?" Beth said happily. I smiled, knowing Mel would be glad to hear that the soup was really tasty. It was much better than any canned soup. I went to the game room where I had another computer, though checking my email was just a reason to give them some time alone. Instead, I turned on the TV and watched the day's news. About 30 minutes later, I heard water running in the kitchen. I got up and found Beth washing the dishes. I cleared my throat softly so I wouldn't startle her. Then I went to the dishwasher and told her to put the dishes inside. I picked up the lid of the soup pot from the table and noticed they had eaten quite a bit. They really needed the food. Beth turned red. "I hope we didn't eat too much of your soup. It was so good." I laughed and said, "No, I'm happy you liked it. My sister made it and brought it here. She often cooks too much and we usually throw some away." I glanced at Lisa, who was still at the table, her eyes getting heavy with sleep. Once the kitchen was tidy, I said, "Ladies, if you follow me, I'll show you to your room." I took them to the room Mel and George used when they stayed. It had a big king-sized bed and a bathroom attached. I asked them to wait a moment and walk to the next room where my niece Jeannie stayed when she visits. Jeannie always left some nightgowns here so she wouldn't have to bring them every time. It was common for the girls to stay over at least 1 weekend a month, so my sister and her husband could have some time alone. I returned with a nightgown and a robe and handed them to Lisa. "These should fit you," I said. "They belong to my niece, and she is about your size. For you, Beth, I think my sister has something you can wear in that closet." I pointed. "The bathroom is through that door. Mike said there's soap, shampoo, and clean towels. You can use the shower or the bathtub, and there's plenty of hot water." Beth looked a bit shy and stared at the ground. She knew they hadn't been able to tidy up for a while. "Oh, one more thing," I added. "The door locks, so you'll be safe if you need anything. My bedroom is at the top of the stairs, first door on the right. Good night, ladies." With that, I closed the door and turned to go upstairs. Beth quickly locked the door behind me. I smiled when I heard the click of the lock as I walked up to my room. I can't blame them, I thought. They're in a new house with someone they don't know. He got ready for bed and lay down, thinking about what tomorrow would be like with his surprise visitors. Soon, he fell asleep. After Mike said goodnight and closed the door, Beth locked it. She couldn't stop thinking about the man who brought 2 strangers from the roadside to his home. From what she could see, he looked like he had money, but he seemed kind too. Beth had been fooled by men before, so she was cautious. Once Mike left, she looked around the room. There was a big bed. When she opened the bathroom door, she was amazed. It was as big as her last bedroom. There was a nice shower and a big bathtub. She turned to her daughter. "Come on, sweetie. Let's get you cleaned up and ready for bed." Lisa yawned and followed her mom into the bathroom. Beth helped her daughter take a bath. After that, she put her in the nightgown Mike had given them and tucked her into the large bed. Lisa fell asleep right away. Beth found a simple nightgown and robe in the closet and went back to the bathroom. She filled the bathtub with warm water and sank in, sighing with relief. As she relaxed, she thought about the men who tried to hurt her earlier that night. She shook at the memory and cried a little. Thank God for Mike, she thought. What would those men have done to my daughter if they found her? The warm water soothed her and she enjoyed the bath, knowing it might be a long time before she could do this again. She guessed Mike would probably take the visitors back to where he found them in the morning, and soon she couldn't stay awake any longer. She got out of the bath, put on her nightgown, and climbed into the big bed beside her daughter. Mike woke up early, as he always did. He used the bathroom and changed into his jogging clothes. Then he went downstairs to let the dogs outside. The coffee maker had made a fresh pot, so he poured himself a cup and stepped out onto the deck. As he thought about the night before, he wasn't sure what to do with his guests. He felt he needed to help them. He usually gave money to charities, but he had never helped anyone in person before. He saw that Beth had a hard time trusting men. He thought his sister Mel might be able to help. After breakfast, he decided to call her. Feeling calm, he went for his regular jog around the property. He guessed Beth and Lisa would sleep in because they were so tired. He was right. When he came back, he heard them starting to wake up as he went up to take a shower. He washed quickly and then went to the kitchen to make breakfast. Denver omelets were his favorite to make. He got out the ingredients and made hash browns the way his sister had taught him. He also started a new pot of coffee in case Beth wanted some. As he finished the first omelet, he heard the bedroom door open. The two guests followed the smell of breakfast into the kitchen. He smiled when he saw them peeking through the door. "Come on in, ladies. Have a seat. Breakfast is almost ready." Their faces lit up with excitement. They were both in their robes. Beth helped Lisa sit down and then turned to Mike. "Can I help you with something?" she asked. "Nope. I've got it all under control. Would you like some coffee?" "Oh, yes, please," she said. He poured her a cup. "Cream or sugar?" "No, black is perfect," she replied. She sat at the table while Mike served the omelets and hash browns. He also got a glass of milk for Lisa. "I hope you like omelets. They're my specialty." They both took a bite. "Oh, this is good," they said. He smiled and started to eat. They ate quietly, either lost in their thoughts or just enjoying the food. Then, suddenly, Lisa knocked over her glass of milk. Her eyes got wide with fear, and her lower lip started to shake. Beth quickly jumped up to grab a dish towel, looking worried. Mike wondered what was happening. Someone must have hurt this child to make her act like this, he thought. He bent down and spoke softly to Lisa. "It's okay, sweetie. Everyone has accidents. We'll clean this up and get you more milk. Don't worry." Lisa looked up at him with big eyes and asked, "You're not mad at me? You're not going to hit me?" I felt tears in my eyes as I said, "Oh no, sweetheart, I'm not angry with you, and I promise I will never hurt you." The look of fear on her face made me very sad. Beth stood close by, tears in her eyes, and silently said, "Thank you," to me. After breakfast, I asked them if they had any clean clothes. Their bags were still in my truck. Beth looked embarrassed and said, "No, we haven't been able to wash our clothes for a while." I replied, "Okay, let's gather what you have and get them clean." I wasn't going to let them wear dirty clothes again. I went to my truck to get their bags as Beth picked up the clothes they wore last night. I took her to the laundry room and showed her how to use the washing machine. "When you have the first load ready, just put the clothes in. Add this soap and pull this knob out. I need to make a couple of calls," I said, leaving Beth to sort the clothes. I went upstairs to call my sister Mel. While I was upstairs, Beth sorted through their clothes while her daughter watched from the doorway. "I think he's a nice man, Mama. He didn't get mad when I spilled my milk." "Yes, honey, he does seem nice," Beth replied, but she still felt unsure. She had been through a lot and found it hard to believe someone could be kind without wanting something in return, even if he was just taking them back home. At least they had a few nice meals and clean clothes. She would do anything to keep her daughter safe. "Mike," I said when my sister picked up the phone. "Good morning, George. It's Mike. Can I talk to Mel?" "Good morning, Mike. Sure, she's in the kitchen. Hold on." A moment later, my sister Mel came on the line. "Hey, Mike, what's going on?" "Sis, I need your help. Can you bring the girls and come over? I'll explain everything when you get here." "Sure, we'll be there in 20 minutes. "Thanks, sis." I hung up and went back downstairs to check on Beth and Lisa. They were in the kitchen talking softly. "Let's find something for you to wear while we wait for the laundry," I said. I said to Beth, "You can use something from the closet in the room you slept in." I turned to Lisa and added, "We'll find something in the other bedroom. My niece is about your size." In Jenny's room, we found a t-shirt, some shorts, and clean underwear for Lisa. I left them to change their clothes. Soon they came out dressed nicely. Beth wore a sundress that my sister had kept. It was a little big, but it fit her well. "Let me show you around while we wait for the washer to finish," I said. "Follow me to the back deck. You'll like the view." Beth and Lisa followed me outside. They both seemed happy with the view. My dogs, Susie and Toby, heard us and ran over. Lisa's eyes lit up when she saw the dogs. She knelt down, laughing as the dogs kissed her face. Beth and I watched and smiled. Then Beth turned to me and said, "You have a beautiful home, Mike." I thanked her and shared, "I know many people like the city, but I enjoy the calm here in the hill country." "There's a lot of beauty if you take a moment to look," I added. Beth gazed at the view and nodded, agreeing that it was peaceful. I took a moment to really look at her. Her blonde hair was clean and hung down to her shoulders. Her blue eyes, which still seemed a bit sad, were brighter now. Even though she looked like she hadn't eaten much, she was still very lovely. A few minutes later, I heard my sister's car pull up. "Beth, I'll be back in a few minutes. If you or Lisa want something to eat or drink, feel free to help yourselves in the kitchen," I said as I went to greet my sister and her daughters. After we hugged, she asked, "Okay, Mike, what's going on?" I explained what happened last night and this morning. "They need help, sis, but I'm not sure how to help. Beth doesn't trust men and might not talk to me. I was hoping you could talk to her and find out what's going on. Then I'll know how to help." "I thought if you brought your girls over, they could keep Lisa busy while we talked," I said. My sister smiled back at me. "You've really become a great helper, haven't you, Mike?" "Okay, I'll lend a hand. Just make sure she's not trying to take advantage of you." "Thanks, sis. I knew I could rely on you. And don't worry, I'm not using you, brother. You never took advantage of me, even when we were kids. I know you care too much for that. I crouched down to chat with my nieces. I want you two to meet a really nice girl. She's been through some tough times and could use some friends. Will you be kind to her?" Both girls rolled their eyes at our mom's favorite brother. "We can do that," said Jeannie. "Thanks, girls." "Wait a second. Favorite brother? I'm your mom's only brother." The girls giggled and dashed toward the house. Melanie and I shook our heads and smiled as we followed them in. The girls were already waiting for us. I led them to the back deck. "Beth, Lisa, meet my sister and my favorite nieces." My nieces rolled their eyes and giggled again. They were my only nieces, just like I was their only uncle. "This is my sister Mel, and these two are Jeannie and Missy." Jeannie piped up, "Hey, watch who you're calling names, Buster." Both girls pouted playfully. "I know you both love me," I laughed. "Maybe just a little bit," Missy giggled. "Girls, this is Beth," I said, nodding to Beth. "And that sweet girl over there is her daughter, Lisa." My nieces said together, "Hi, Lisa." Lisa answered quietly, "Hi." I could see she needed friends her own age, but was very shy. "Why don't you girls take the dogs out and play in the yard?" My nieces loved playing with the dogs. First, the dogs would chase the girls, and then the girls would chase the dogs. They never seemed to get tired of it. "Okay," said Jeannie. I watched as my nieces took Lisa's hands and led her into the yard. "Come on, puppies," Jeannie called. Soon, the yard was filled with laughter and barking as the girls and dogs ran around. "Sit down, Mel. Want a cup of coffee? How about you, Beth? Would you like another cup?" Both ladies said yes, so I headed to the kitchen. I poured 1 cup black for Beth and 1 with a little cream for Mel. I returned with the cups and heard Mel and Beth talking about the girls. Mel smiled and thanked me. Beth also said thank you, but her smile was small. I could tell she wasn't sure if she trusted me yet. For the next 15 minutes, we talked about the weather and other simple things. Mel shared stories about her daycare and her family trying to connect with Beth. I noticed Beth seemed more comfortable with Mel than with me. When I mentioned how much Beth and Lisa enjoyed the chicken soup last night, Mel looked happy. Beth agreed it was tasty, and Mel thanked her again. I felt it might be best to give them some space. Mel could find out what had happened to Beth and Lisa, why they were without a home and running away. I told Mel I needed to check the boat dock since I hadn't been there in days. Could she stay and keep Beth company? She replied, "Sure, little brother. Beth and I can chat." I thought about taking the girls with me. They love running around the cove. I asked Beth if it was okay for Lisa to join us with the girls. Mel added, "I'm sure she'll have fun." But I saw a bit of worry in Beth's eyes. Letting her daughter go with someone she didn't know well was hard for her. She hesitated, saying, "I don't know." "Beth?" Mel said softly. "Other than my husband, I trust Mike more than anyone else. He will keep Lisa safe. The boat dock is private and she will be well looked after. Why don't we ask Lisa if she wants to go?" Beth thought for a moment, then finally said, "I guess it's okay, as long as she wants to go." I walked to the edge of the deck and called out, "Girls, do you want to come to the boat dock with me?" My nieces jumped up and down with excitement. Yes, can Lisa come too?" I told them to ask her and see what she said. "She's welcome to join us." My nieces crowded around Lisa, encouraging her to come along, but Lisa looked worried and said, "I don't know. Mama said I shouldn't trust strange men." Jenny giggled and said, "He's not a strange man. He's Uncle Mike. He'll take care of us. You'll like the boat dock. We can skip rocks on the water. Come on." Lisa felt unsure. On one hand, she wanted to spend time with her new friends. On the other hand, she worried about being away from her mom. After thinking for a bit, Lisa decided she wanted to go. "Okay, I'll ask Mom, but I don't think she'll say yes." The three girls ran out to the deck. Lisa stood in front of her mom while my nieces stood behind her. "Mom, can I go with Jenny and Missy to see the boat?" "Please," my nieces begged, giving their mom big puppy dog eyes. "Lisa, are you sure you want to?" Beth asked. "Yes, Mom. Jenny and Missy will look after me." "Yes, Miss Beth will take care of her," Jenny added. Beth turned to me. "How long will you be gone, Mike?" "We'll be back in about an hour. The girls can have fun and still be home for lunch." "Well, if you really want to go, Lisa, then I guess it's okay." "Oh, thank you, Mom," Lisa cried as she hugged her mother tightly. With that settled, I said, "Let's go, girls. Grab the dogs while I get my keys." The girls ran to my truck, chatting happily like I was taking them to an amusement park. As they ran out, I turned to Beth. "She'll be fine, I promise. I'll bring her back if she's not having fun." Beth nodded, but still looked worried about her choice. It only took a few minutes to reach the cove. When I turned off the engine, the girls and dogs jumped out and started playing. I sat under a big oak tree in the shade, watching them. I loved seeing the girls and dogs have fun. Sometimes one of the dogs would run over and lick my hand, happy to play. Jenny and Missy took turns running over to give me hugs, too. I noticed Lisa watching and thought she might want to join in, but I didn't push her. She needed to feel safe and trust me. I even let them take off their shoes and stand in the shallow water. Finally, it was time to leave. I told the girls to put on their shoes while I checked the boat. I noticed Lisa talking quietly to the other girls. A minute later, all three came up to me. Jenny and Missy stood behind Lisa. "Go on, Lisa, ask him. He won't bite, I promise," Missy said. Lisa looked down shyly and asked, "Can I see the boat, Mr. Mike? I've never seen one up close." I chuckled and said, "Sure, sweetie, but we have some rules on the dock. Be very careful and don't play around, okay?" "Yes, sir, I promise," she replied. We walked down the ramp to the floating platform. I let Jenny and Lisa go first so I could keep an eye on them. Lisa held onto Jenny's hand tightly. This was a big deal for her. I followed along, holding Missy's hand too. The girls knew the safety rules for being on a boat. If they didn't follow the rules, they couldn't go on the boat. The dock had room for 2 boats and a big platform with lockers. Each space had a lift to keep boats out of the water when they weren't being used. I told the girls to wait while I lowered the boat. Once the boat was in the water, I took off the cover and climbed in first. I called Missy over and lifted her into the boat. Then I told Jenny to bring Lisa over. I lifted Lisa in next. She looked surprised when I touched her, but I quickly got her into the boat next to Missy. Finally, I lifted Jenny in. I sat in the driver's seat and told Lisa she could sit next to me. I pointed out the different parts of the boat. She nodded the whole time. I knew we needed to head back soon to avoid worrying Beth. "Okay, girls," I said. "I'd love to take you for a ride on the lake, but I didn't ask your moms. We need to get back for lunch. I stepped out and lifted Jenny to the platform first. Then I lifted Lisa, who let me lift her without any worry this time. Finally, I lifted Missy out. The three girls held hands and whispered to each other while I covered the boat and lifted it out of the water again. We walked back to my truck the same way, with Jenny and Lisa holding hands in front and Missy and me following behind them. I got everyone back in the truck and we drove home. When I turned off the engine, everyone jumped out. This time, the three girls waited for me. Lisa smiled and said, "Thank you, Mr. Mike. I had a lot of fun." "You're welcome, sweetie. I'm glad you had fun," I replied. Jenny said, "Thanks, Uncle Mike. We had fun too." She and Missy hugged my legs. I said, "You're welcome, girls. Now let's go inside and tell Lisa's mom we're back and safe. Then it will be time for lunch. Would you girls like me to make some hamburgers?" Jenny and Missy bounced up and down with excitement. "Yes, yes, yummy!" they shouted together. Missy turned to Lisa. "My Uncle Mike makes the best hamburgers in the whole world," she said proudly. We walked into the living room and saw Mel and Beth sitting together. I noticed Beth looked a bit upset. I saw my sister and she mouthed later to me. I nodded. Lisa, still excited, ran to her mom. Mama, we had so much fun. We skipped rocks, splashed in the water, and I even sat in a boat." Beth turned to me with a serious face. "You took my daughter in a boat?" she asked. I raised my hands and said, "Whoa, wait! We just sat in the boat by the dock. I didn't even start the engine. I was with them the whole time. I would never take Jenny and Missy out without their parents' permission." Beth's face softened. "Oh, Mama, don't be mad. I had so much fun. Mr. Mike told me the safety rules, and Jenny kept an eye on me the whole time," Lisa said, hoping to make her mom feel better. Beth hugged Lisa. "It's okay, sweetie. Mama's not mad. I'm glad you had fun." Then she looked at me. "I'm sorry, Mike. I should have listened first." "It's okay, Beth. No harm done. Now how about those burgers I promised the girls?" Mel spoke up for the first time. "Oh, yes. Beth, you have to try Mike's hamburgers. He's really good at grilling. How can we help, Mike?" "Nothing needed, ladies. This is my treat," I said with a smile. "Missy, why don't you show Lisa the game room? You two can enjoy your tea while I get everything ready." Without waiting for a reply, I went into the kitchen. Mel and Beth looked at each other and shrugged. I then started working. I seasoned the meat, sliced tomatoes and onions, and prepared the lettuce. I arranged different kinds of cheese on a plate so everyone could pick what they liked. I opened a can of baked beans and put them on the stove to warm up. Then I took the burger patties and buns outside to the grill. I started cooking the burgers. While they grilled, I sat on the deck sipping iced tea and thought about the day and what Mel might have learned about Beth and Lisa. Just before the patties were ready, I toasted the buns on the grill. After that, I brought everything inside and set it all up on the counter. I called out, "Mel, Beth, tell the girls lunch is ready." I sat down at the table and waited. Everyone must have been hungry because they quickly filled the kitchen. "Okay, moms, help the girls make their burgers just how they like them." Mel walked to the counter with Beth. "You make one for Lisa, and I'll help Missy." "Missy, come here and tell me what you want on your burger." Soon enough, everyone had their plates, and we all sat down at the table. I got up to make my own burger and noticed everyone was watching me. "Go ahead and eat, ladies. Don't wait for me." Beth took a bite of her burger and smiled. "Oh, Mel, you really weren't joking. This burger is amazing." I smiled at the nice words and joined them at the table. The girls talked happily while we ate. I stayed quiet and listened. After lunch, Mel and Beth said they would clean up. I didn't argue because I liked cooking more than cleaning. While they cleared the table, I took the younger girls back to the game room. I sat in my favorite chair and watched them play a video game. I must have been more tired than I realized because I nodded off. I woke up to someone gently shaking my shoulder. "Mike, little brother, wake up." I opened my eyes and saw my sister smiling at me. "I guess I needed a nap," I said with a shy smile. "Must be a sign you're getting old," Mel joked. "It's time for us girls to go home. We don't want George to worry." "Okay, sis. I'll walk you out." I stretched and followed Mel to the car. Beth stood by the door, watching as Lisa and my nieces waited by the car. "Get in the car, girls. Your dad is waiting," Mel said. She turned to hug me and whispered, "Call me when you can." I hugged her back. "I'll call you later, sis." As I walked back inside, I saw Lisa run to her mom. They both waved as Mel drove away. I wondered what news Mel had. Back in the house, Beth said to me, "Your sister is very nice and her daughters are lovely." "I really like Jeannie and Missy," Lisa added. "And I can tell they really like you too." "Yes, Beth. I think they are special people, not just because we are family." "Have you seen the game room yet?" "No, not yet, but I heard the girls talking about it." "Then come with me. I'll show you how to use the TV. Lisa already knows how to play the video games. I also have a bunch of board and card games. I will let you two have some fun. I work from home, so I need to spend some time in my office." I took them to the game room and showed them where everything was. Then I excused myself and went back upstairs. In my office, I checked my emails and replied to a few important ones. I wanted to give Mel time to get home and talk to George. I knew he would want to know why I invited just the girls over. Beth felt a bit nervous around men, so I thought it would be better for just the girls to come. Half an hour later, I finished my emails and was ready to talk to Mel. So I called her just like I did that morning. George answered the phone first. "Hi, George, it's Mike." I knew he could see who was calling. "Hello, Mike. What is this Mel has been telling me? You're picking up unusual women and bringing them home." "Oh, come on, George. It's not like that at all," I begged him. I heard George laugh lightly. "If you say so, my friend. Wait a second. I'll get your sister." A moment later, my sister answered the phone. After a few friendly words, she started to tell me about her chat with Beth. At first, Beth didn't want to share much, but as they talked more, she opened up. Beth told Mel that her dad left her and her mom to struggle on their own. Her mom worked 2 jobs until Beth finished high school. After school, Beth got a job, and they were making it. But then Beth got pregnant with Lisa, and the dad ran away as soon as he found out. After Lisa was born, Beth stayed with her mom and worked at a diner to support them. About a year ago, when Beth worked, her mom watched Lisa. Then Beth met a man who was nice to both her and her daughter at first. But 6 months ago, Beth's mom passed away, and the new boyfriend talked her into moving in with him. That's when things began to turn bad. He started to hurt her. Beth didn't really know what he did for a job because he was always vague about it. She began to think he was selling drugs. A month ago, everything got worse when he came home drunk and high. They had a fight, and he hurt her, threatening to kill her and Lisa. Beth managed to take Lisa and locked themselves in a bedroom until he fell asleep. She took what little they could carry and decided to leave. On their way out, she saw some money he had dropped. She took it, and they ran away. They got to the highway where a truck driver gave them a ride to Austin. They used the money for a while, staying in cheap motels, but Beth couldn't find a job, and soon they ended up on the streets. That's when I found them under the bridge. Now she is scared. Her ex-boyfriend is still searching for them and will hurt her and Lisa if he finds them. "Wow, Mel," I said after hearing everything. "I understand why she doesn't trust men. If it's true, she doesn't deserve what has happened to her. Now I have to think of a way to help her and Lisa." I looked into her eyes as she shared her story, and I believed her. My sister said, "Thanks again, sis. You answered the questions I had about her, and please thank George for me for letting you help today." After I said goodbye, I sat down to think about what my sister had told me. I stood up and went back downstairs. I needed to figure out what to do next, and a lot depended on Beth. I walked into the game room and saw Lisa watching cartoons while Beth read a magazine. Lisa looked up at me when I entered, and I smiled. "You can keep watching your cartoons, sweetie. I just need to talk to your mom in the living room, okay?" Lisa smiled and nodded, turning back to the TV. I turned to Beth and saw her expression change, but she got up and followed me to the other room. "So, Mike, what happens now? Are you going to take us back to where you found us?" Beth asked, worry clear in her voice. "Is that what you want, Beth? To send your daughter back to the streets to face the same dangers, like last night?" When I said this, Beth sank down onto the couch, tears flowing down her face. "No, I don't want that for Lisa," she said firmly. "But I don't know what to do. I have no family and nowhere to go." "What would you like to happen, Beth?" "I don't know, Mike. I'm all out of answers. I'm tired of running and being scared." We sat in silence for a moment before I said, "Will you let me help you and Lisa?" Beth looked at me with doubt in her eyes. "Why would you do that for us, Mike? You don't even know us." What's in it for you? First off, Beth, I don't expect or want anything from you or Lisa in return. I was lucky and got some money recently. For the last year, I've been helping others by giving money to good charities. But I haven't helped people face to face. Maybe I'm being selfish. If I help you and Lisa improve your lives, I will feel good about it. So, it's up to you, Beth. I want to help you and your daughter. But I can't make you. You and Lisa can talk and decide by tomorrow. If you want my help, we can plan it together. You can leave anytime you choose. The only thing I ask is that you try your best for yourself and your daughter. If you don't trust me, I can take you wherever you want tomorrow. It's your choice. I'm tired and didn't sleep well last night, so I'm going to bed. You and Lisa can use the game room and eat whatever you find in the kitchen. You already know where to sleep. Good night. I stood up, walked to the stairs, and went to my bedroom, leaving Beth to think about what I said. Beth sat there, staring at Mike's back as he went upstairs. Is this real? She wondered. Could Mike really want to help without wanting anything in return? She thought about everything he had done since he found them. He saved her from a bad situation and took them to his home. He gave them food and a safe place to stay. And she remembered his sister Mel and her little girls, who clearly loved Mike. He hadn't tried anything out of line. In fact, he said clearly he wanted nothing from her. Would it be so bad to accept his help if he was different from the other men in her life? She could leave with Lisa again, but for now they had clean clothes, warm meals, and a cozy bed. She saw that Lisa was already happier playing with kids her own age. Beth decided to accept his offer but would stay cautious about his intentions. She had to try this for her daughter's sake. In my room, I took a shower and got into bed. I couldn't sleep well. I was thinking about the story Beth told Mel about her life. If it was true, I hoped she would let me help her, especially for her daughter. My sister told me that Beth and Lisa needed new clothes because their old ones were worn out. So getting them new clothes was the first thing to do, especially if Beth chose to stay. We also needed to get Lisa into school. I had to talk to Beth about getting her school papers. With this on my mind, I finally fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m., just like always. I changed into my jogging suit, let the dogs out, made a cup of coffee, and went for my morning run. When I got back, I was surprised to find Beth and Lisa in the kitchen. Lisa was sitting at the table watching her mom cook. When I walked in, Beth turned to me and said, "I hope you don't mind. I thought I would make breakfast this morning." I replied, "Not at all. I'll just take a quick shower and be back." I quickly showered, shaved, and got dressed. As I returned to the kitchen, Beth was just setting the plates on the table. My timing was perfect. I sat down and smiled at Lisa. She gave me a shy smile back and said, "Good morning, Mr. Mike." I answered, "Good morning, sweetheart. How are you today?" She giggled and replied, "I'm good." I then asked Beth, "And how are you this morning?" She said, "I'm good," which made Lisa giggle again. I started to enjoy my breakfast, which included 2 fried eggs, 2 pancakes, sausage, and toast. It was really tasty. I told Beth, "This breakfast is great. Your pancakes are light and fluffy. You have to teach me how to make them like this." Beth smiled, happy to hear my praise. I noted that Beth could use more compliments. Meanwhile, Lisa was humming happily as she ate. When she finished, she looked up and asked, "Mr. Mike, can I go outside and play with the puppies?" I said, "That's fine with me, Lisa, but you should ask your mom." "Can I, Mama?" Beth thought about it for a moment and then said, "Okay, honey, just be careful." Lisa jumped up, kissed her mom on the cheek, and ran outside. I turned to Beth and said, "She really is a sweet child." Beth replied, "Yes, she is. I think I would have given up sometimes if not for her. She is the most important person in my life." We sat quietly, drinking our coffee. Then I asked her a question. "Have you made your decision, Beth?" "Yes, Mike, I have. It would be silly to say no to your offer for my daughter. I will accept. I still worry about why you want to help, but I will trust you for now, until you show me otherwise." "I understand, Beth. That's okay. I get why you feel that way. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to make a phone call." "I'll help you clean the kitchen," I said. "No, Mike. I want to clean up here," she replied. "I want to help. Please," she asked. I could see she really meant it. I thought it was good that she wanted to help. Okay, I'll be in the game room, I said. I left the kitchen and took out my phone. I called my sister. George answered as always. Hey, George, it's me, I said. Let me guess. You need my family again, he joked. Yes, if Mel is okay with it, but only if you are too. All right, I'll let you talk to your sister. But you owe me, he laughed before calling my sister. Hi, little brother, how are you? She asked. I made Beth an offer to help her get back on her feet, and she said yes. Mike, you're a good man. I hope this works out. I was worried at first, but after talking to Beth, I think you're doing the right thing. I laughed a little. I wish she felt the same way, but she doesn't trust me yet, maybe in time. I called because I wanted to know if you and the girls could take Beth and Lisa shopping for new clothes and things they need. Use my credit card, she said. A day of shopping and spending your money? Let me think. My sister paused for a moment. Okay, I'm in. Have them ready. We'll be over in about an hour. Thanks, sis. I love you. I know, little brother. See you soon. Now I had to tell Beth and Lisa about the shopping trip. I went to the kitchen door and looked inside. Earlier at breakfast, I could hear Beth humming while she cleaned up. I gently cleared my throat so Beth would know I was there. She turned around, her face red because she realized I heard her humming. I decided to let it go. I wanted to tell you that Mel and the girls will be here soon. They are taking you and Lisa shopping. Shopping? Beth asked. Yes, for new clothes, shoes, and anything else you need. If you let me help, you and Lisa need these things. I saw Beth take a deep breath. Okay, Michael, if you say so. It was the first time she used my full name. I liked it for some reason. Beth went to the back door and called for Lisa. Out of breath, Lisa came running, chased by my 2 dogs. Yes, Mama, come inside now, take a bath, and put on clean clothes. Mel and the girls are coming to take us shopping. Beth said this when she mentioned my nieces. Lisa's face lit up with excitement. Ginny and Missy are coming. Yay! Okay, Mama, I'll hurry to take my bath. She dashed off to the bathroom. I was still smiling when Beth went to join Lisa. To kill some time, I went to the game room and turned on a football game. I didn't care for either team, but I liked watching. Half an hour later, I heard little feet running towards me. Are they here yet? Lisa asked, bursting into the room. Not yet, sweetie, just a little longer. Here, I'll change the channel to cartoons for you to watch until they arrive. Okay, she said happily, sitting down on the couch. I smiled as I watched her wiggle and look out the window for her new friends. Another 15 minutes passed, and then Beth came in. She was wearing one of Mel's dresses. Do you think your sister will mind if I wear her dress? I don't have anything nice to wear. I'm sure it's fine, Beth, don't worry. Just then, I saw their car pulling up. Lisa jumped up, yelling, They're here! They're here! In less than a second, she was out the door to see her new friends. I looked at Beth and smiled for the first time. She smiled back, and it brightened her whole face. We went outside to say hi to my sister and nieces after we finished inside. We got the 3 little ones buckled into the back seat and put Beth in the front passenger seat. My sister walked over to me and asked, Any advice, Mike? I handed her my credit card and said, Come on, sis, I'm just a regular guy. What do I know about what women want? Just take them out, buy what they need, get their hair done or whatever they like. Clothes, shoes, makeup, treat everyone to lunch. If you and the girls see something you like, just add it to my tab. Just try to keep it under $1 million, okay? My sister laughed and said, Right, got it. 1 million is our limit. Bye, little brother. With that, she turned and walked to her car. Mel! I shouted after her. She turned around and blew me a kiss before getting in her car and driving away. I sighed and went back inside. If I kept this up, I might need to borrow money to fill my time. I went to my home gym and worked out for 2 hours. After that, I played with the dogs in the backyard. I made myself a good salad for lunch and then went to the game room to watch TV. By 5 o'clock, I was getting restless, and by 6 o'clock, I started to worry. Just as I was about to call my sister, I saw her car pulling up. I quickly sat in my chair and changed the channel to ESPN, trying to act cool. I heard the front door open and the sound of laughter. I sat there as my nieces and Lisa jumped into the room. My 2 nieces leaped onto my lap, giggling. Uncle Mike, we had so much fun, Missy said. Look at Lisa. She has all new clothes and a new hairstyle. I looked over at Lisa, who was standing a bit shy, watching us. She looked nice in her new clothes, and her haircut made her look cute. My, I said. "You look lovely, sweetie." Lisa turned red and said, "Thank you, Mr. Mike." Just then, my sister and Beth walked into the room. When I looked at Beth, I couldn't breathe. She looked very different. My sister saw me staring. "Aren't you going to say anything, Mike?" Mel asked. "You look really nice, Beth," I said, feeling my face go red as I stumbled over my words. "Thank you, Michael. That's kind of you," Beth replied, blushing. Then Mel said, "Get up, Mike. Go bring in their bags so the girls and I can head home." I put my nieces down and quickly did what she asked. After 3 trips, I moved everything to their room. I went back to the game room and told Mel that I had unloaded all the bags. My sister stood up, told the girls to get in the car, and walked over to Beth. She kissed Beth on the cheek and said they would see each other later in the week. As we walked to her car, Mel turned to me. "Mike, I have to say, after spending the day with Beth and her daughter, they are really nice people. What you are doing for them is very kind." I didn't know what to reply, so I just hugged my sister and kissed my nieces on the cheek. Then I went back inside. As I walked through the front door, I could hear Beth and Lisa talking happily about their day. I headed to the game room and told Beth I had brought their things to their room. "I'm going to bed now," I said. "If you're hungry, feel free to eat anything in the kitchen. I'll see you in the morning." I turned and walked quickly to my room. Once the door was shut, I sat on my bed. I had only known Beth for 2 days, but when she came in tonight, I was taken aback. She looked so beautiful, and my feelings for her were getting confusing. "Get a grip," I told myself. "Do you want to go through another mess like with Jenny?" Thinking about my ex-wife and what she did was enough to shake me back to reality. Beth and Lisa were just a project for me. I was doing a good thing, not letting my heart get hurt again. Beth was surprised when Mike walked in and said he was going to bed. She and Lisa had a wonderful day with Mel and her daughters. They had a great time together. But now, back at Mike's house, he felt distant and uncomfortable. Beth started to worry that maybe they had gone too far that day. She didn't want to spend so much money, but Mel had convinced her. Mel was good at making people agree with her. The morning had been hard for Beth, but by lunchtime she and Mel were getting along really well. By the time they returned to Mike's house, Beth felt like they had been friends for a long time. It was also wonderful to see Lisa laughing and having fun with her new friends. It had been a while since Lisa looked this happy. Mike's reaction when they got back surprised Beth. She wasn't sure what she expected, but it wasn't the cold welcome he gave. She started to fear that Mike might ask them to leave. This would really hurt Lisa since she had just made new friends. That night, Beth had trouble sleeping, tossing and turning, wondering what the next day would hold. The next morning, I started my day with a cup of coffee and then went for a run. I knew I had to keep things professional with Beth. Staying away from other women had been easy before, but having Beth in my house was different. It was hard to avoid being close. After my run, I found Lisa and her mom in the kitchen, just like yesterday. "Morning, ladies," I said as I walked in. "Good morning, Mr. Mike," Lisa giggled. "Morning, Mike," Beth whispered. I noticed that Beth looked tired, like she hadn't slept well. "Just going to shower and then we'll be back down," I said, leaving the kitchen. I wondered if something was bothering Beth. Being a typical guy, I didn't realize it was about what happened the night before. I decided to let her talk to me when she was ready. After my shower, I went back to the kitchen where breakfast was ready. I sat down and began to eat. I glanced at Beth from time to time, but she was hardly eating. I chose not to push her to tell me what was wrong. Instead, I waited until I was done eating. "Beth, now that you've agreed to my help, we need to get Lisa signed up for school," I said. Lisa's eyes got big. "School?" she asked. "Yes, dear. School." When I said this, I saw Beth looking at me. Then Lisa asked, "Will I be going to the same school as Jenny and Missy?" "Yes, sweetheart, you will, but I can't promise you'll be in the same class. We'll have to wait and see." "Oh, okay." I glanced back at Beth. She was staring at me. "What?" I asked. "Nothing. It's just—" She stopped. "It's just what, Beth?" "No, it's nothing. You're right, Mike. Lisa doesn't need to be in school." After saying that, Beth stood up to clear the table. I got up to help her. "I can do this, Mike," I told myself, feeling ready for a serious talk. "Lisa, why don't you go outside and play with Susie and Toby for a bit?" I suggested. Lisa looked at her mom, who nodded. Once Lisa shut the door, I asked Beth to sit down. "Beth, Since we'll be living together until you feel ready to move out, we should set some rules first. I don't expect you to be my maid. I appreciate your help, but I can also do my part. That means helping to clean up after meals. Got it? Yes, Mike, she replied. Second, let's talk about where everyone will sleep. Beth's eyes went wide, but I spoke calmly. Right now, you and Lisa are sharing a room. There are 3 bedrooms downstairs. 2 have a bathroom between them. If you and Lisa want your own rooms, you can pick any of those. It's up to you. Beth sighed in relief, glad I wasn't suggesting anything strange. My rooms are upstairs, and I'll take care of them. We'll share the areas downstairs. You and Lisa should keep your rooms tidy. I'll respect your space and won't go into them. We all need to clean up after ourselves. Does that sound okay? Yes, Michael, she said, using my full name. It felt good to hear it. My ex, Jenny, only used my full name when she was angry. Now, we need to think about getting you a job so you and Lisa can be independent. Do you have any ideas about what you want to do? I used to work as a cashier and a waitress, she said. That's a good start. Is that all you want? Or do you want something more? Suddenly, Beth started crying. Oh no, tears. I never knew how to deal with tears. I want a better job, but I only finished high school. I don't think anyone would hire me for anything else, she said, her voice shaky. Feeling nervous, I tried to sound gentle. Okay, Beth. Let's see what jobs are available. We'll talk about it, okay? Beth nodded and wiped her eyes. All right, let's clean the kitchen, I suggested. We worked in silence. I felt bad for making her cry. I went to my office. I thought about what to do next. Making Beth cry had upset me. My past jobs with mostly men didn't help. I needed to talk to Mel. I called my sister's daycare and left a message for her to call me. To keep my mind busy, I played Sudoku on my computer. After an hour, my phone rang. What's going on, little brother? Need some help? You can always call your big sister because I love her. Stop joking, Michael. I made Beth cry and I feel awful, I said, and I explained what happened. Mel gave me some good advice. Remember, Beth isn't an employee. Be nicer to her. I will take tomorrow off. I'll meet you at the school to sign up Lisa. The vice principal is a friend and she can help us. After our call, I felt thankful for Mel. She had helped me a lot since my divorce. I stayed in my office until lunchtime. At lunch, I invited them for sandwiches and soup. Lisa was happy, but Beth just nodded. Lunch was quiet with not much talking. I mentioned that Mel would meet us at school, but Lisa felt the tension. After lunch, I played more Sudoku in my office. Dinner was the same quiet time, just different food. I cleaned up and went to bed without saying much. I didn't know what to say. The next morning, I didn't go for my run. Instead, I made breakfast. When Beth walked into the kitchen, she looked surprised. Once again, our meal was quiet, mostly filled with Lisa's questions about her new school. After breakfast, we all got into my truck and headed to meet Mel. I guessed my sister had called her friend, the vice principal, the night before because they got in quickly to see her. I chose to stay in the waiting area. I started counting the ceiling tiles to pass the time. About an hour later, the door opened. Jenny, my niece, came in. She saw me and ran over to give me a hug. I raised my eyebrow at her. Why are you in the vice principal's office, young lady? Have you been in trouble? Jenny laughed and playfully slapped my arm. That's for me to know and for you to find out, she said, spinning around and going back into the office. About 15 minutes later, Jenny and Lisa came out holding hands. Lisa looked very happy. Mr. Mike, I'm going to be in Jenny's class. She's going to help me, she said excitedly. That's great, sweetie. I know Jenny will take good care of you, I replied. Bye, Uncle Mike. Come on, Lisa. It's almost recess time. We're going to have so much fun, Jenny said as she pulled Lisa out the door. Another 10 minutes passed before my sister and Beth came out of the vice principal's office. Mel walked over to me and said, Mike, Beth is coming with me to see where I work. I'll drop her off this afternoon on my way home. The way my sister said it made it sound like it was already decided. I didn't feel like arguing. Both women left the office and I watched them go. Then I walked out of the school and drove back home. On the way home, I thought about what was happening and how I could fix it. I knew things were a bit strange between Beth and me. If it kept up, I would end up feeling like I had to hide in my own house. I decided right then that wouldn't happen. This was my home, and I wouldn't let anyone make me feel that way. Beth walked behind Mel to her car, feeling a wash of relief. She had felt very nervous about riding home alone with Mike, even when they were just in a room together. Lisa had been close by. Beth didn't think Mike would harm her, but she still didn't completely trust him. The men in her life had either left or hurt her, and she found herself wondering if she could ever feel safe with any man again. During the drive to the daycare center, Mel talked about the school. She shared information about the lessons, activities, and the parents' group. Beth was happy to learn it was one of the best schools in the state. She really wanted Lisa to get a good education and hoped she could go to college someday. That was something Beth never had a chance to do. Beth felt impressed with the daycare center. It was in a good-sized building with many rooms for different ages. All the rooms were bright, clean, and cheerful. Each room had toys and learning games for the kids. Mel showed Beth around, introducing her to her staff. When they reached one room, Beth noticed it was empty and asked Mel why. Mel explained it was for older kids up to 8 years old, who came after school until their parents picked them up. Beth then saw a lady in the baby room who looked stressed. She offered to help with changing diapers and feeding the babies. Mel smiled as she watched Beth, seeing how much she cared for the children. She thought offering Beth a job could be good for both of them. At lunchtime, Mel told her staff that she was taking Beth to eat. They went to a nice little cafe close by. After they ordered, Mel brought up the idea of Beth working at the daycare. "So, Beth, what did you think of the daycare center?" Mel asked. Beth replied, "Oh, I really liked it. You've made it a wonderful place for kids. I can imagine you get a lot of joy from taking care of all these children." Mel agreed, but added, "I have to say, it can be very busy at times, and it's not the right job for everyone." "Sure. Here's a simpler version of the text. I do love it. I was really impressed watching you with the little kids today," Mel said, taking a moment for her words to sink in. "I was wondering if you would think about coming to work for me." Beth's eyes got wide. "Mike told you to do this, didn't he? He thinks I can't find a job by myself?" Mel smiled and reached over to touch Beth's hand. "No, Beth. Mike didn't ask me to give you a job. He doesn't know about this. I'm not doing it just because I want to be nice. One of my full-time workers had to leave town to help her mom, who got sick. The woman you met, who works with the 3 to 4-year-olds, said she could help for a few days. But she doesn't want to work full-time. She only helps out when I'm short on help. I saw you with Lisa, and I saw you this morning with the babies. If you want the job, I think you would do great. I really need the help." Beth's eyes softened. "Mel, I don't know what to say. Beth, there's one more thing you might like. After school, my girls catch the bus and come to the center. I can keep an eye on them and spend more time with them. If you work for me, Lisa can ride the bus with my girls and stay at the center until you finish your shift." Beth felt thankful. "Thanks, Mel. You don't know how much this means to me." Mel smiled. "Even if Mike didn't ask for this, I think he will be happy you found a job quickly." Beth's smile faded. "Yeah, Mike. I just hope I can stay long enough to get back on my feet." Mel looked worried. "What's wrong? I don't think your brother is happy with me. I feel like he's upset about how much money we spent," Beth said. "Beth, trust me, Mike isn't worried about that money. Why do you think so?" "Well, after you left last night, he just came in and said he was going to bed. This morning he was polite, but acted all businesslike. I think he regrets offering to help me and Lisa since he's acting kind of strange. There must be something else. Let me tell you about my brother. If you're staying at his place, you should understand something important. You and Mike have more in common than you realize," Mel said. Beth looked confused. What could they share? He is rich, has a lovely home, and a nice family. On the other hand, I'm without a home, out of money, and all I have is Lisa. But I am grateful for her every day. You both have faced pain from those you cared about. When Mike was in high school, he really liked a girl. He thought they had a future together until he found her with his best friend. Mike was heartbroken. He joined the Marines right after finishing school to escape. He served for 4 years, then returned and used the GI Bill to go to college. Mike studied plants and took care of lawns to help pay for school. He worked very hard, and people noticed. He got so many requests that he didn't have enough time. So he hired help and started a small business by his 3rd year. That's when he met Jenny. Beth noticed anger in Mel's eyes when she mentioned Jenny. Mel went on, Mike and Jenny dated until he finished school. Then they got married. Later, Mike won the lottery but came home to find Jenny leaving him. Mike spent the first year building his house and took time to heal from his breakup. I tried to get him to go out, but he didn't want to. When he did join us, he made it clear to any woman that he was not looking for anything. And believe me, many women were interested. Mike is a handsome man and has money, too. You both feel like you can't trust men anymore, but he would never mean to hurt you or Lisa. Beth nodded, thinking about what Mel said. It didn't completely explain Mike's actions, but it helped her see him in a new light. If he truly was helping her and Lisa without wanting anything back, then he is a kind man. She admitted to herself that Mel's brother was indeed very good-looking. After lunch, the two women went back to the center. Beth filled out her new job papers and helped take care of the kids. Lisa was so happy to ride the bus with her new friends, Jeannie and Missy, to the daycare center. She felt even more excited when her mom told her that she would be working there, and they would ride the bus together every day. At about 5 in the afternoon, Mel called her brother. While this was happening, Mike decided not to go straight home after Mel left with Beth. Instead, he went to a cafe and met Jim Henley. They chatted about the land Mike had bought from Jim. Jim wanted to know about the changes Mike had made. Mike invited him to come see, and Jim agreed. They finished their coffee and went to Mike's place. Jim was really impressed by all the updates. He left around noon to have lunch with his wife. Mike made a sandwich, grabbed some chips and a soda, and went to his office. After eating, he turned on his computer to do some work, but instead, he played Sudoku. After a few hours, he took a break and walked his dogs. He came back a little after 4 and started getting ready for dinner. I wanted to have dinner ready for Lisa after her first day of school. A little after 5, the phone rang. It was the daycare center. "Hi, sis," I said when I picked up. "Hey, little brother, just wanted to let you know we will be home in a few minutes," Mel said. "Okay, see you soon." I went to the kitchen and started the sauce and boiled the noodles. I was making spaghetti because I thought Lisa would like it. Kids usually love spaghetti. Just as I finished cooking, I heard Mel's car pull up. A minute later, the door opened and I heard the happy chatter of girls coming in. "I'm in here!" I called from the kitchen. I heard little feet running toward me and turned just in time to catch my nieces as they jumped on me. I gave each of them a quick kiss and saw Lisa standing there looking a bit shy. "Hey, sweetie, how was your first day of school?" Lisa's face brightened up. "Oh, Mr. Mike, I had so much fun. Jenny took me around and I met all her friends. They were really nice. I think I'm going to like this school. Then I got to ride the bus with Jenny and Missy to the daycare." Mama started to say something, but before she could finish, Jenny and Missy jumped in. "It's a secret, remember?" Lisa nodded. "Oh, right, but I really did have a great time." At that moment, I noticed my sister Mel and her friend Beth walking into the kitchen. Beth looked serious, but Mel smiled at me. "Come on, girls. Your dad will be home soon. Let's get dinner ready," Mel said. "Okay," the girls replied together. I leaned down and got my usual kiss on the cheek. Then they rushed over to Lisa and hugged her. "See you tomorrow, Lisa," they called as they ran to the car. I told Mel I would walk her out. Then I told Beth and Lisa that dinner was ready if they wanted to wash up. I followed Mel outside. When we got to her car, I asked, "What's the secret all about?" "Don't worry, Mike. If you're nice, Beth will tell you," Mel replied. "Oh, I see. You tell George everything, but your little brother doesn't count," I teased her. Mel smiled. "This isn't a secret about us, it's Beth's secret." "Yeah, whatever," I said with a smile. I kissed Mel on the cheek and went back inside. Beth, Lisa, and I arrived in the kitchen at the same time. "Do you like spaghetti, Lisa?" I asked. "Oh yes, Mr. Mike, I love it," she replied. "Great. If you ladies sit down, I'll bring it to the table." I had already set the table, so while Beth and Lisa took their seats, I drained the noodles and put them in a big bowl. Then I poured the sauce into another bowl and carried both to the table. Lastly, I brought drinks for all of us and took my seat. Beth made a plate for Lisa, then served herself, and I did the same. We ate quietly for a while until Lisa finally asked, "Mama, aren't you going to tell Mr. Mike the secret?" I looked at Beth with excitement. She was looking down at her plate. "I got a job today, Mike. I will work for your sister at the daycare center," she said. "Isn't that great, Mr. Mike?" Lisa added happily. This really surprised me. Yes, that's very good. Congratulations, Beth, I replied. Beth looked at me with a confused expression. Thank you, Michael, she said. She could see my surprise and knew Mel had told her everything. I didn't know about this at all. The rest of dinner went on with cheerful talk about Lisa's first day at school. Beth and I cleaned the kitchen with little conversation while Lisa went to the game room to watch TV. When we finished, we joined Lisa. I sat in my recliner watching the Disney Channel, and Beth sat on the couch reading. At 9 o'clock, Beth got up and told Lisa it was time to get ready for bed. Lisa stood up and said, Okay, Mom. Good night, Mr. Mike. Good night, sweetie. Sweet dreams, I said. Good night, Beth. Good night, Mike, Beth replied as she left the room. After they were gone, I switched the TV to CNN and stared at the screen. I thought about what happened that day. Lisa started school and Beth got a job. It was an important day for both of them. Even though I hadn't talked much with Beth, I still felt something when I looked at her. Come on, man, don't let her get to you. You could get hurt again, I thought. I turned off the TV and went to bed, whispering goodnight. The next morning, I woke up early like always. I decided to skip my morning run and went to the kitchen to make breakfast for the new schoolgirl and the working woman. Beth was surprised when she walked into the kitchen and saw me making their plates. I set their plates on the table and brought Beth a cup of coffee and Lisa a glass of milk. My sister told me she would stop by this morning to pick up Beth and Lisa, so I didn't have to take them myself. I wished both of them a nice day and went out for my morning run. I asked Beth to leave the dishes and I would clean up when I got back. When I came home, I found the kitchen clean and the house empty. Mel had already taken Beth and Lisa. I walked in and decided to have some cereal for breakfast. I thought about how Beth and Lisa needed a way to get around, even though their school and work weren't far. I didn't want my sister to drive them every day. After I finished eating, I went upstairs to get ready to go out. An hour later, I was walking around a car lot. It was the same place where I bought my truck. The salesman who sold me my truck saw me and came out to say hello. He asked if my truck was okay. I told him yes, but I was looking for a nice used car for someone special. I gave him a look to show I didn't want any tricks. An hour later, I made my purchase and arranged for delivery. Feeling good, I headed home around 3 in the afternoon. The car arrived, and I parked it in the driveway so Beth would see it when she got back. I felt happy about how things were going. Lisa was in school, Beth had a job, and now she had a car. I planned to give her the keys when she got home. I felt proud of myself. A couple of hours later, Mel's car pulled up. I went outside to greet them. My sister noticed the car in the driveway and asked, "Whose car is that, Mike? Are you having visitors?" I replied, No visitors. I bought it this morning for Beth. They needed a way to get around." Beth stood there, her mouth open in surprise. "Mike, you shouldn't have. You're already doing so much for us," she said. I replied, "Think about it. You're working and Lisa is in school. Do you really want to depend on someone else to take you everywhere?" She said, "Well, no," and then added, "Thank you, Michael." I gave her the keys and asked if she wanted to take a drive. Lisa thought that was a great idea and brought her mom along as they drove away. My sister looked at me and said, "You're a good man, little brother." I felt shy and said, "Oh, shucks, I'm just being practical." My sister smiled, stood on her tiptoes, and kissed my cheek. Then she and her daughters went home. I went back inside to wait for Beth and Lisa to come back for dinner. Lisa and Beth chatted about their new car. They were happy to have a way to get around without needing me or Mel. After dinner and cleaning the kitchen, we all headed to the game room. I sat in my chair while Beth sat on the couch with a magazine. Sometimes I would look at Beth and see her looking back at me, but she'd quickly go back to her magazine. Each time our eyes met, I felt nervous. I tried to focus on the TV, but I couldn't stop glancing at Beth. Finally, at 9 o'clock, Beth and Lisa went to bed. After putting Lisa to bed, Beth lay awake, thinking about how much her life had changed. One day she was without a home, and now she had a nice house, a job, a car, and her daughter was in a good school. She also thought about Mike. When their eyes met, she felt a flutter in her stomach. She was confused about her feelings after everything she had faced. Thinking about Mike, she eventually fell asleep. The next morning, I got up and found Beth in the kitchen making breakfast. She was excited to drive Lisa to school and then go to work in her new car. While eating, I told Beth that it was the weekend when I watched my nieces so their parents could have some time alone. Beth blushed a bit at the words alone time. Lisa, however, was excited. "You mean Jenny and Missy are going to spend the night?" she asked eagerly. "Yep, they will stay tonight and tomorrow night here," I told her. "Yippee!" yelled Lisa happily. My sister called to see if I still wanted to have the girls over. I told her I did. I knew Lisa would love a sleepover, and Beth would enjoy a fun night with the girls when they got here that afternoon. The girls were really excited, and it seemed like they were going to have a great time. Even Beth was in a good mood. I made my special burgers, and after dinner I stepped away to give the girls some space from my office. I could hear their giggles and laughter. Beth's laughter made me happy. I was glad to see her having fun. The next morning, I asked the girls at breakfast if they liked their night. They all smiled big and nodded happily. After breakfast, the girls went outside to play. Beth and I cleaned the kitchen and then went out on the deck to watch them. We didn't talk much, but we often looked at each other with smiles. After a while, I thought Beth might want some time alone. So I left and went to the game room to watch TV. Around noon, I heard little feet rushing in. "Uncle Mike, we're hungry," said Missy as she climbed into my lap. I said, "I bet you are. What do you think I should do about that?" "Feed us!" Missy shouted, hugging me tight. Laughing, I picked her up and put her on my shoulder. "Okay, let's make lunch." We decided on sandwiches and chips. Beth helped me prepare everything. As we finished lunch, Jenny asked, "Uncle Mike, can we go swimming in your pool, please?" I replied, "Sure, it's warm enough today." "Lisa, do you have a swimsuit?" "Oh, yes. Mom and I bought new ones when we went shopping," Lisa said. "Put yours on, Mom, and come swim with us." I noticed Beth looked shy and a bit flustered about wearing a swimsuit in front of me. I asked her, "Beth, can you swim?" She nodded. I said, "I need to do some work in my office. Would you mind going with the girls and keeping an eye on them?" "Sure," she replied. There wasn't much to clean up, so I told them to go change, and I would take care of the kitchen. Just as I finished, they were ready to head out. The girls came outside with towels, heading to the pool. Beth wore a cover-up that reached halfway down her thighs as she walked by. I noticed her nice legs while the girls enjoyed the water. I went upstairs to use the computer and could hear their laughter through the window. After about 45 minutes, I stepped out onto the deck that looked over the backyard and pool. I saw Beth getting out of the pool and walking toward a lounge chair. She had on a simple yellow one-piece swimsuit that made her legs look long. I had never seen her in such little clothing before. It was clear she had a nice figure. As she walked, water dripped off her. She looked good. When she reached the chair, she took a towel and dried herself before sitting down. Then she started putting sun lotion on her legs. Suddenly, I looked down and felt embarrassed. I quickly went back inside the house. It had been over 2 years since I had been with a woman, and seeing Beth brought back feelings in me. I needed to calm down. I went to the bathroom, turned on the shower, and stepped in, grabbing the soap. I tried to relax. I felt ashamed for having feelings for Beth, who lived with me. I knew she didn't trust men and wouldn't feel the same about me. If she noticed anything, she might leave with her daughter, which would break the trust we had. I got out of the shower, got dressed, and stayed in my office until dinner. When it was time to eat, I joined the girls but tried not to look at Beth. I was afraid she would see my worry. After dinner, I told them to keep having fun at the slumber party and hurried back to my room. I went to bed early but couldn't sleep, thinking about Beth. On Sunday morning, I woke up early, put on my jogging clothes, and went for a long run to clear my mind. When I got back, the girls were finishing breakfast. They told me they saved me a plate. I thanked them and said I would join them after a shower. 20 minutes later, I was eating breakfast by myself while the girls went to the game room. When I finished, I decided to join them. At first, I liked watching them play. Beth was on the couch, reading like she always did. Now and then, I glanced at her. She was wearing a new sundress, and I couldn't help but think about her in a swimsuit. I tried not to show it, but I felt a reaction I didn't want. To avoid making things awkward, I mumbled something about needing to go to the bathroom and rushed upstairs. Once in my room, I tried to calm down. Beth was still on the couch reading when Mike came into the game room. He sat down in his favorite chair. She saw how much he liked watching the girls play. She couldn't stop looking at him. Mike had just showered and was wearing a tight t-shirt that showed off his strong build. He wasn't too big, but just right. She thought about what it might feel like to be in his arms. Beth was confused by her thoughts. She knew she shouldn't be thinking this way. She tried to focus on her book, but noticed Mike watching her. Suddenly, he mumbled something and left quickly. Her eyes followed him and she gasped. Did he react like that because of her? The idea sent a flutter of feelings through her that she couldn't ignore. She tried to push it away but found herself unable to. Beth realized she needed to act fast before her dress got stained. She told the girls she was going to take a bath and would stay in her room. They just nodded and went back to their game. Beth rushed to her room, locked the door, and then locked the bathroom door too. She quickly filled the tub, took off her clothes, and slipped into the water. She tried to calm herself down, but her thoughts kept drifting to Mike. Her hands moved without thinking, and she felt a swirl of emotions. Soon, she got out of the bath and dressed, trying hard to push her thoughts away. Meanwhile, Mike was dealing with his own feelings. He cleaned up and changed his shirt, hoping no one would notice. He went back downstairs and saw that Beth was no longer in the room. He wondered where she had gone, but didn't think too much about it. Beth came back a little later, looking a bit warm but relaxed. She said she had taken a bath and sat down. Mike, also feeling relaxed, glanced at her every so often, especially at her legs. Just then, Mel arrived to pick up the girls. They all sat on the couch and talked for a bit. Mike mentioned that Beth had been taking care of the girls while he was upstairs. Mel thanked them for their help, and after a short time, she left with the girls. Lisa then asked Beth if they could go swimming again, and if Mike could join them this time. Beth turned to Mike and asked if he wanted to go. "Sure, I'm okay with it," he replied. Beth agreed, though she seemed a little unsure. They all got ready for the pool. Mike reached the pool area first and waited for Beth and the girls. When they came, Mike opened the gate and let them in. He noticed Beth looking at him as he walked back to his chair. Since his days in the Marines, he had kept in shape and wondered if she noticed. Beth wore a cover-up over her swimsuit. Mike put on sunglasses so he could watch her without being too obvious. Lisa jumped into the pool right away, while Beth took her time, taking off her cover-up and laying her towel on a chair. After a few minutes of relaxing in the sun, Beth joined them in the water. They played with a volleyball, and Mike liked the feeling of being with family during this time together. He knew he would miss them when they left. Beth was the first to feel tired and said she was going to get out of the water. She swam to the side near the loungers and climbed out, leaving Mike to play a bit longer with Lisa. Mike felt a strong connection to her as he watched her from the pool. As she stood up, she bent down a little, and he could see her clearly. I nearly gasped, because I thought I saw her shape through the wetsuit. I started feeling a bit awkward, so I quickly threw the ball to Lisa and swam to the deeper end of the pool to hide. About 15 minutes later, Beth told Lisa that it was time to get out of the pool for dinner and to get ready for bed since tomorrow was a school day. We went inside, changed our clothes, and had a quick dinner. While we were eating, Lisa asked her mom if she could sleep in the room that Jenny usually used. She said she wanted her own room like Jenny and Missy had at their house. At first, Beth didn't want to agree, but she eventually said yes. After dinner, we all hung out in the game room until bedtime. That night, I didn't stay up after they went to bed. I went straight to my room, changed, and got into bed. After putting Lisa to bed, Beth went to her room to get ready for sleep. She had been unsure about letting Lisa sleep alone, but then she thought it was silly to worry. She knew that Mike would never hurt Lisa. Beth climbed into her bed and thought about the afternoon. Mike had been by the gate waiting for her, and she had a good look at him. He had a strong upper body, and his legs looked fit from jogging. As she thought about this, she felt a warm feeling. She remembered how she couldn't stop watching him while he played with Lisa. She had to jump into the pool because she felt a bit too stirred up and didn't want him to see. Beth's hands moved down her body as she lifted her nightgown. She remembered getting out of the pool and feeling shy because she thought Mike had seen too much. She looked back and knew he had been watching her. She felt he was interested too, and she was sure of that. Beth let out a sigh as she settled into her bed, feeling more calm. She giggled a little, thinking that maybe it was good that Lisa finally had her own room. Soon, she fell asleep. Mike. As I got into bed, I thought about the pool earlier. Beth had taken off her cover-up and bent down. Wow, I remembered how great she looked reaching for the ball. The way she moved was really nice. My hand started to move faster as I thought about her getting out of the pool. I could see through her wet clothes, and I imagined more. I wanted to be close to her and make her feel special. These thoughts made me feel excited. Eventually, I fell asleep still thinking about her. In the morning, I woke up and realized a mess had happened. I laughed, remembering the night. I took a quick shower and went to the kitchen. There, I found Beth humming while she cooked. Lisa was at the table watching her mom. "Good morning, ladies," I said as I entered. "Good morning, Mr. Mike," answered Lisa. "Good morning, Mr. Mike," said Beth, which made Lisa giggle and me chuckle. Breakfast was nice, and there was a friendly feeling between Beth and me. After breakfast, Beth and Lisa went to school and work. I went for a jog and then hit the gym for lunch. I stopped by a cafe downtown and enjoyed some soup and salad. We had dinner together and then headed to the game room. Tonight, Lisa wanted to play a board game, so Beth and I joined her, making her very happy. Then it was bedtime for them. The rest of the week went by in a similar way. Beth and I got along better as we spent more time together. I even noticed she had a good sense of humor when she showed it, but there was still some tension. I knew I liked Beth, and I guessed she still didn't fully trust men. I especially enjoyed when Lisa wanted to play games with us. We would sit on pillows on the floor. I could talk more with Beth, and since she wore dresses, I could sneak a look at her legs while pretending to focus on the game. The next weekend, George and I went fishing. Meanwhile, Mel, Beth, and the kids went shopping and spent time at my pool. I gave Beth a credit card for groceries and other things she and Lisa might need. She was still careful about spending money, but I think she started to see that it was okay with me. Another week went by just like the last one. Some nights we played games, and other nights we watched TV with Lisa. Lisa was becoming more comfortable with me around my nieces. She saw that I wasn't a threat. One day she brought home a picture from school. I told her I had the best place for it. I pinned it up in the kitchen with magnets so we could see it every day. I was kneeling down when she said, "Thank you, Mr. Mike." Then she kissed my cheek and ran off, giggling. I touched my cheek, wanting to keep that kiss. I looked at Beth, who smiled and followed her daughter. I grabbed a soda and sat down at the kitchen table, thinking about how quickly Lisa was getting used to her new life. That kiss showed me she was starting to trust me. I hoped her mother would too. I told Beth that her paychecks would go into a bank account and that I would help with the expenses for now. This was the fastest way for her to save money and become independent. I thought it would take about 2 to 3 months if she wanted to move out before then. I would pay her rent until she was ready. Another week went by and the weather looked rainy all weekend. On Saturday, Mel, Beth, and the girls went shopping for the week. I spent the day working on Sudoku puzzles. That night, Mel and Beth took the girls to see a Disney movie while I stayed home and did crossword puzzles. On Sunday, Beth did laundry while I played games with Lisa. Soon it was Monday again, the start of a new week for school and work. Another week passed and we settled into a nice routine. We played games some nights and watched TV on others. The girls did their homework at daycare so we didn't have to stress about it at home. It felt like having my own family, but without the bit of extra chaos, if you understand what I mean. My feelings for Beth were getting stronger. I still liked her, but I was starting to see what a great person she was. Being with her helped me forget my past and what my ex-wife did. I was beginning to feel better, but it was tough because I wasn't sure if Beth trusted me. Another change I saw was that my dogs really liked Lisa. She was kind to them. They would curl up next to her while she watched TV and slept in her bed. For Beth, the 2 weeks after the pool day went by quickly. She enjoyed her new job and taking care of the kids. Having Mel as her boss was good, and their friendship got stronger. Things with Mike were better too. She felt he was happy to help her and Lisa. She liked spending evenings with him, especially when they played games. She often wore dresses since she knew Mike liked them. She started to see Mike as more than just a friend. He was funny, kind, and caring. She liked that he was always respectful. He never said anything inappropriate and was good with Lisa, who was warming up to him, at least for now. Lisa had a good male role model, which was different from her father. Beth's feelings for Mike were growing. He had come into her life at a hard time and gave her hope. It was too bad he didn't fully trust women. It was a Friday, 3 weeks after Beth started her job, when my sister called me at work. "Hey, little brother, how's your day?" she asked. I was looking into charities. "Pretty good, sis. How about you?" I replied. "Really good. No problems yet. Listen, George and I want to take you and Beth out to dinner tomorrow night. It's been too long since we went out together. We have a sitter for the kids, and you can bring Lisa too. What do you think?" I hesitated. "Well, I don't know, sis. I mean Beth." But Mel cut me off. "I already talked to Beth, and she is excited about it. It's been a long time since she went out." "Well, I guess I'm outvoted then," I said. "What time do you want us over?" 6 would be great. See you tomorrow, Mike." With that, she hung up, and I started thinking about going out with Beth. We weren't going out together. We were just going to dinner with my sister and brother-in-law. I knew my sister and Beth had become friends. Since Beth was staying at my house, it made sense for her to be invited too. My sister wasn't trying to set me up on a date. When Beth came home that night, she didn't say anything about dinner. She only mentioned that she and Mel were going shopping in the morning and asked if I could watch Lisa. I gladly said I could watch Lisa and that I would ride with her to my sister's house so Lisa could play with my nieces. That night, George and I hung out and played board games. Beth wore a dress that was shorter than usual. A few times, when she moved, I saw a little too much. It surprised me. Later, when Beth went to bed, she was really excited. She hadn't gone out for a long time and was looking forward to the next night. Mel told her they would find the perfect dress on Saturday morning. Beth wore the short dress because she knew Mike liked to look at her legs. After dinner, she suggested playing games with Lisa, and Lisa was happy to join in. While they played, Beth seemed a bit uneasy, like she knew Mike might see up her skirt. At one point, she thought Mike's eyes would pop out of his head. When she finally went to bed that night, she had to cough to hide her laughter. She couldn't believe she had been trying to get Mike's attention. The thrill of being a little cheeky made her feel great. The next morning, I woke up at my usual time and went to the kitchen. I made breakfast, and just as I was finishing, Beth and Lisa came in, still sleepy. After Beth had a cup of coffee, she seemed fully awake and was in a fantastic mood, laughing and joking around. I thought she was really excited about going out tonight, so I planned to behave well so she could enjoy herself. We got to my sister's house a little after 9, and the women said they would be back later. George and I were fine with that. We planned to watch sports while the girls spent time together. It was almost 4 when Mel and Beth came back. They had their hair done and looked very pretty. My sister looked wonderful, and I could see George admiring her. Beth came in behind her, looking just as lovely. I felt a flash of jealousy thinking about how happy George was, but I put on a smile and told both women how beautiful they looked. They both smiled back. Mel suggested we leave Lisa at home for the night so Beth and I could get ready as soon as we got back. Beth went to her room with her shopping bags. I went upstairs to take a shower, shave, and dress. I chose nice pants, a light blue shirt, a dark tie, and a nice jacket. Then I waited for Beth. At 5:45, she came out of her room. When I saw her, I couldn't believe my eyes. She wore a little black dress that was just right, not too much, but still very nice. She looked amazing. Beth laughed at my shocked face. "I take it you like it?" she asked. "Yes, I really do. You look fantastic," I said, hoping I hadn't said too much. Beth just giggled and said, "And you look great, too." I hoped she didn't notice how surprised I was. I opened the door for her to my truck. When she got in, I caught a glimpse of her legs, and I realized she was wearing stockings. I felt a mix of feelings. Like I really liked her, but also a bit sad since I wasn't sure if she felt the same way. Still, I wanted to make sure she had a fun night. We got to my sister's house by 6 and shared a glass of wine before going to the restaurant. We chose a nice seafood place and got a round booth. The ladies sat inside with George next to Mel, and I sat next to Beth. Dinner was nice, and the people around me made it even better. But I kept noticing my sister looking at me. I wasn't sure why she kept glancing my way. I was being polite and joining in the conversation. After we finished eating, my sister suggested we go to a fun place nearby. They had a dance floor, and I knew my sister loved to dance with her husband. I let Beth decide what to do because she seemed to be enjoying the evening. Beth agreed quickly, so we went to the club. It was quite busy, but we found a table and ordered some drinks. My sister and her husband hit the dance floor right away, leaving just Beth and me at the table. I thought about asking Beth to dance, but I worried she might not want to. We talked, and she said she was having a great time. After a few dances, Mel and George returned to our table. As Mel passed by me, she whispered, "Ask her to dance." We talked some more, and when the next song started playing, I asked Beth if she wanted to dance. She took my hand and pulled me onto the dance floor. I was relieved she didn't say no. I thought I could dance well, but watching Beth was like watching art. The fast song allowed me to enjoy her moves even more. When a slow song began, Beth slipped into my arms before I could say anything. Holding her felt magical. After our dance, we went back to our table. I followed Beth, hoping no one noticed how excited I was. We chatted a bit more until Mel and George went out dancing again. I took Beth's hand, and we danced to 3 more fast songs before taking a break at our table. Beth said she needed to go to the restroom, so Mel, George, and I stayed to talk. Soon, I needed to go too, so I excused myself. The restrooms were down a short hallway. As I turned the corner, I saw Beth pressed against the wall, trying to push away a drunk man. Anger bubbled up inside me. I rushed down the hall, grabbed the man by his neck, and pushed him against the wall. I was ready to hit him for bothering Beth when I lifted my fist, but Beth put her hand on my arm. "No, Michael, he's not worth it." My anger started to go away. I leaned closer to the guy and whispered, "I think you should go before you see what an angry Marine can do." He looked scared and quickly said sorry before running off. I turned to Beth, worried she might now be afraid of me. She softly touched my cheek. "Thank you, Michael. You're my hero," she said. Then she walked back to our table. I finished in the bathroom and came back. I saw that both Mel and George knew what happened, and they smiled at me. Beth and I danced a few more times before I headed to get us one last round of drinks. On my way to the bar, a pretty redhead stopped me and started chatting. I was trying to be nice and get away when suddenly Beth and another woman stepped in between us. "Back off! He's with me!" I could hardly believe Beth said that. The redhead saw they were serious and quickly apologized. Mel said, "She was rude. She knows you're with us and still tried to flirt with you. That's not nice." "Sorry to ruin your fun, Michael," Beth said with a shy smile. "Well, I think they know not to mess with us," Mel told Beth. "We'll be at the table when you get those drinks, Mike." The women walked back to the table, and I saw George laughing. As I got back to the bar, I realized that Beth's brave words were just for show. I knew she might get upset if she discovered I really liked her. No other problems came up, and I returned with our drinks. The girls were still laughing about chasing off the redhead. "Since you saved me from that rude person, we thought we'd do you a favor," Beth said playfully, clearly feeling good from the drinks. "But if you want, I can say sorry and get her number for you." "No, that's okay," I said, knowing that the only one I cared about was Beth. We finished our drinks and decided to call it a night. We walked to the car feeling good, but not too tipsy. George stayed sober all night because he was our designated driver. On the short ride back to Mel's house, the girls giggled in the back seat while I sat in the front with George. When we got back, we checked on the kids and let the babysitter go home. The kids were all asleep in one room on their sleeping bags. We quietly closed the door and went back to the living room. Mel poured some wine for her and Beth, while George and I had a beer. Soon, Beth dozed off on the couch after her last glass of wine. It had been a long day with shopping, dinner, and then the club. We decided to let the babysitter stay the night since it was really late. I saw that Beth had fallen asleep, so I whispered to Mel to get a blanket. We carefully laid Beth down on the couch and covered her up. Then, I got ready to head home. At first, Mel wanted me to stay the night, but I told her I needed to go back to my dogs. It was just 2 miles home, and there was no traffic out in the country at this hour. As I drove back, I thought about dancing with Beth. Holding her during the slow songs made me realize that I had strong feelings for her. It was tough because we lived together, and I felt like I couldn't act on those feelings. The longer she stayed, the harder it would be when she and Lisa moved out. Maybe I should help them rent a place. I could pay for a year's rent up front to give her some time to save money and be on her own. Today was a big day for Beth. First, she went shopping with Mel, found the perfect dress, and got her hair done. Mike's face when he saw her was something she would never forget. She felt excited and nervous. Dinner at the restaurant was amazing. It had been so long since she had gone out, and nobody had ever taken her to such a nice place. She felt a little jealous watching Mel and George be so in love at the club. Dancing with Mike was even better than she had hoped. His strong arms made her feel safe. She knew she was starting to fall for him. Maybe she and Lisa should find a place soon. If not, it would only hurt more later. Mike wanted everyone to go home, but for now he just wanted to relax. He closed his eyes, took a sip of his wine, and remembered how nice it felt when she was in his arms. That was the last thing he thought about before waking up on Mel's couch the next morning. He felt embarrassed. He had slept longer than usual after a night of drinks and staying up late. He really needed that sleep. He skipped his morning run and went downstairs to make some coffee and cereal. He was thinking about falling in love with Beth, but he didn't know what to do if he rented a place for her and Lisa. He worried his sister might think he was kicking them out, and he didn't want to hurt her feelings. He had no other family and didn't want to lose her. He knew his nieces might get upset too if they thought he was leaving their friend Lisa behind. He needed to think this through carefully. It was nearly noon when Mel brought Beth home. She looked a bit embarrassed and apologized right away. "Oh, Mike, I'm so sorry for falling asleep like that," she said. He laughed and said, "Don't worry, Beth. I know you had a long day. I hope you enjoyed your evening." "Yes, I did. It was wonderful," she replied. "It's been so long since I went out, and that was the nicest restaurant I have ever been to." "I'm glad," he said. "I need to shower and change. Then I'll make us some lunch," she said as she walked to her room. Beth was still in the little black dress from last night. She looked just as lovely now as when he first saw her in it. He wanted to tell her to keep wearing it all day, but he knew she would think he was strange and might leave with Lisa. Plus, the way she looked made him feel things he thought were better kept to himself. He helped her in the kitchen, and they made a quick lunch together. After that, she and Lisa went to meet Mel for their weekly grocery shopping. Mike didn't mind letting Beth take care of this because she knew what they liked to eat. They came back a little after 5. By the time they put everything away, it was time for dinner. They watched some TV until Beth and Lisa went to bed. Tomorrow was Monday, the start of the school and work week. When Beth and Lisa got home Monday evening, we followed our normal routine. We made dinner, ate, cleaned the kitchen, and then played games with Lisa. Tonight, Lisa wanted to play a board game. We took our usual spots and started playing. I found it hard to focus. I kept looking at Beth's legs and her lips. I really wanted to kiss her. It was becoming difficult not to tell her how I felt. Somehow I got through the week without saying anything. This weekend, my nieces were having another sleepover. On Friday night, I was making spaghetti, which the kids love, when I heard the door open and the happy voices of the girls. They ran in with Beth coming in behind them. I hugged and kissed Missy, then Jeannie, before returning to the stove. Little Lisa looked up at me and said, "Mr. Mike, can I have a hug too?" Her sweet voice made my eyes fill with tears. This lovely girl, who I would have been proud to call my own, wanted a hug too. "Of course, sweetie," I said, bending down to give her a big hug and a kiss on the cheek, just like my nieces. She giggled and was very happy. "Thank you, Mr. Mike," she said, and then she ran after my nieces to the game room. I noticed Beth standing there with tears in her eyes looking at me. I quickly got up and turned back to the stove. I couldn't say anything because I felt so emotional. Beth said she would wash her hands and then help with dinner. I could hear that she was also touched by Lisa's request. When Beth returned, we called the girls to the table. During dinner, I noticed Beth looking at me strangely. I didn't know what she was thinking and hoped it wasn't something bad. After dinner, unlike last week, the girls wanted me to play games too. We all had a great time. I even made popcorn for them when it was time for bed. My nieces came over and kissed my cheek. This time, I wasn't surprised when Lisa did the same thing. I noticed Beth giving me a strange look before she helped the girls get ready for bed. I waited for her to come back while I watched the news, but she never did. When I went upstairs, her bedroom door was shut. I hoped she wasn't too upset. On Saturday morning, everyone was still asleep, so I decided to go for a jog. I ran for an hour and a half. When I got back, I heard the girls starting to wake up. I rushed upstairs to shower and get dressed so I could make breakfast. When I arrived in the kitchen, I saw Beth was already there. She seemed to have everything under control and told me to grab a cup of coffee and sit down. I did what she said and sat at the table to watch her. At first, she was facing away from me, focused on the stove. Finally, she turned to look at me. She smiled. I took that as a good sign that she wasn't upset. A few moments later, the girls came in one by one, kissed my cheek, and said good morning before taking a seat. I noticed Beth smiled a bit when Lisa kissed my cheek, like my nieces used to do. Maybe today wouldn't be so bad. The girls wanted to go for a boat ride. After asking George for permission, we went to the boat dock. I helped everyone put on life jackets, and then we left the small cove and headed to the bigger lake. Neither Beth nor Lisa had been on a boat before. I could see Lisa was excited, but Beth looked nervous. She told me she had never been on a boat before. After about 45 minutes, Beth was relaxed and having fun. I thought if I could teach her how to fish, she would be perfect for me. I wished things were different and that she felt the same way about me. The rest of the weekend was fun with Beth and the girls. On Sunday, my nieces went home, and a new week began for the girls. Monday morning went by quickly for Beth. She and Mel went to the cafe for lunch, as they often did. Beth shared her stories about the weekend with the girls and how much she enjoyed the boat ride. Mel thanked her for taking care of her girls. Mel offered to take Lisa for a weekend if Beth wanted some time alone. Beth thought about how Mel and George probably spent their weekends. She whispered, "I wish." "What did you say?" Mel asked. Beth hadn't meant to say it out loud. "Oh, nothing," she replied. Mel looked at her closely. "No, Beth, it wasn't nothing. You said you wish. Do you wish you could have weekends like George and me?" Beth's eyes went wide. "That's it, isn't it? But I don't think you would feel that way unless you had someone in mind. Do you like Mike?" Beth stared at Mel. She wondered if it was that clear. She wanted to share her feelings, but Mel was Mike's sister. She was scared Mel would be upset and she would lose her friend. But she had to talk to someone. Tears filled her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mel, but yes, I do. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I can't help it. And now I don't know what to do." "Don't be sorry, Beth. This is great," Mel said with excitement. "How can this be great? You told me that your brother can't trust women. How is liking a man like that a good thing? Listen to me. When you came to Mike's house a month and a half ago, how did you feel about men?" "I thought I could never trust or love a man again," Beth answered. "Okay, one more question. Think about it and be honest. If Mike loved you and wanted you and Lisa to be in his life, could you love him back? Be honest with him, be open, and most of all, trust him." Beth looked at Mel, trying to find the right answer. She knew she wasn't the same person she was 6 weeks ago. She used to feel scared and without hope. Mike had changed that. The answer was clear. "Yes, Mel, I could. I do love him, but what's the point? We both know it's one-sided." "You are very wrong. I know my brother better than he knows himself. 6 weeks ago, he couldn't trust anyone. But you changed that, Beth. My brother is in love with you. I see it in his eyes every time he looks at you. He's scared to tell you how he feels. He worries you might get scared and run away. Beth, you both need each other. You are the good woman he needs, and he is the good man you deserve." I never liked or trusted his ex-wife. I was worried she might do something bad, and she did. But I have seen how much you love your daughter and how well you care for the kids at the center. I know your love is real, and I know Mike cares a lot about Lisa too. If he could, he would raise her as his own child. Deep down, I believe you know my brother would never hurt you or Lisa. Beth felt a wave of relief. "What should I do? I want your brother to love me. I want to be with him. I think we just need to give him a little push." Over the weekend, my bond with Lisa changed. Now, when she comes down for breakfast, she kisses my cheek. She gives me another kiss before she goes to school. When she gets home, she runs to find me with her arms wide open for a hug and a kiss. Before bed, I get one more kiss. Each kiss makes me love this little girl more. I wish I could be the father she deserves. When Beth came home Monday evening, I noticed she was different. I didn't know what she talked about with my sister, but she was not the same as last week. She looked for me to talk and met my eyes. Before this, she often looked down. That evening, she said she wanted to play Monopoly. After dinner, Lisa quickly went to set up the game while Beth and I cleaned the kitchen. Then Beth said she needed to go to her room and would join us later. When she came in, she was wearing a shorter skirt. Her long legs caught my attention. As she sat down, I caught a glimpse up her skirt and saw her blue underwear. I quickly put a pillow on my lap to hide my surprise. Beth gave me a sly smile. I was struggling to focus. Was she joking with me? During the game, she kept moving in her seat, and I noticed her skirt. At bedtime, I felt like she was watching me as Lisa put the game away. She turned her back to us, but she gave me one last look before leaving. When I woke up on Tuesday morning, I remembered the night clearly. I took a shower and changed my sheets. That night, we watched TV instead of playing games. Beth talked to me. It was nice to chat, even though I didn't see anything else. Wednesday was the same as Tuesday. We watched TV and talked. But on Thursday evening, Beth wanted to play games again. I felt something more in her voice. She went to her room and came back wearing a short skirt. When she sat down, I could see her underwear. I could see everything. She had a small strip of hair, and nothing else. My reaction was strong. That night, Beth gave me quick glimpses too. She watched us as Lisa got ready for bed, keeping her back to us. I got a long look from her as they left the room, and I felt overwhelmed. Lisa kissed me on the cheek and said goodnight. Beth did the same, and her kiss felt warm. Before she left, she looked into my eyes and said, "I will see you tomorrow, Michael." The way she said my name made me feel both excited and nervous. When her door shut, I hurried to my room. I couldn't hold back anymore. I cleaned up and lay down, still thinking about Beth. I decided I needed to ask my sister what she thought. On Friday morning, I woke up as usual, put on my jogging suit, and went downstairs. Beth was already there, finishing her breakfast. Lisa came in next, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Good morning, Mr. Mike." Beth set Lisa's plate down and brought hers to the chair next to mine. Before sitting, Beth leaned over, kissed my cheek, and said, "Good morning, Mr. Mike." Lisa laughed when she saw the confused look on my face before she and Beth left for the day. Both girls gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. If Lisa hadn't been there, I would have hugged Beth and kissed her the way I really wanted to. For the next few hours, I sat in my office feeling mixed up. What was going on? Just before lunch, my phone rang. It was Mel's home number. I was surprised when George answered. He said he took the day off to work on a project at home and asked if I could help him. I said yes right away because I needed a break from my busy thoughts. George was putting in new baseboards in a few rooms. It wasn't hard work, but it was easier with someone to help hold the long boards. Around 5 o'clock, George decided to stop for the day. I went home, wondering what the evening with Beth and Lisa would be like. When I got home, I was surprised to see Beth's car in the driveway. She usually got home about 30 minutes later. A delicious smell was coming from the kitchen. Beth called out, telling me to go upstairs, take a shower, and meet her in the dining room. We usually ate in the kitchen, so I was curious about her plan. After showering and changing, I went down to the dining room. The table was all set with candles glowing in the center. I sat down and waited to see what would happen next. Beth soon came in with 2 plates of food. She looked amazing in the little black dress she wore last Saturday. She asked me to open a bottle of wine. I noticed the wine bucket and did as she asked. Even though I wasn't a wine expert, I could tell this wine was nice. I pulled out the chair for Beth, and after she sat down, I took my seat. Before we began to eat, I asked, "Where's Lisa?" "She's spending the night with your nieces. It's just you and me for a special evening," she said. The way she said special made me wonder what she had in mind. The meal was tasty, and our conversation was fun and lively. Beth cleaned up the dishes, and we moved to the living room to talk for another hour. Then she said she had turned on the hot tub and suggested I change into my swimsuit. I hurried upstairs, excited about seeing Beth in her swimsuit, but when I came back, she was still dressed. "Are you going to change and join me?" I asked. "Yes, I have my suit on under my dress," she said, turning to lead the way. "Don't forget to bring the wine," she called back. I grabbed the bottle and glasses and followed her, slowing down to watch her walk. Her dress swayed gently with each step. At the hot tub, I opened the gate for her. She told me to get in first. I slid into the warm water and watched as she untied her dress. Slowly, she took it off. My heart raced when I saw her. Instead of the yellow one-piece swimsuit she wore before, she had on a tiny bikini with just strings. When she turned to hang her dress over the fence, I couldn't help but react. The bikini covered very little, just some small pieces in the back. She turned around when she heard me. "What's wrong, Mike? Don't you like my suit?" "Oh, Beth, I like it." "I like it very much," I replied. I hoped she would be happy to hear that. She giggled as she slid into the water, and we talked easily for about 20 minutes. I didn't hide the fact that I was looking at her in the bubbling water. She made sure to keep herself just right for me to see. Then she took a deep breath and dove underwater. The only light came from the hot tub. Through the bubbles, I saw her swimming toward me. After some time, we put on robes, and she said she wanted to make breakfast for me. Her words made me feel proud. I watched her move around the kitchen, and every time she looked at me, she smiled. I sat drinking my coffee. After breakfast, she sat on my lap and kissed my cheek gently. I slid my hand up her legs and inside her robe. She felt warm. "So did I make you my woman?" I asked. "I am so glad to be yours, my dear," she said, taking a deep breath. "That's good. I have always wanted to share something special with you." I picked her up and placed her on the table. I gently pushed her legs apart and moved closer. I took my time, really enjoying the moment. She was filled with excitement. Soon, she started to ask for more. Moments later, she shouted, "Yes, more, please!" She kept asking more loudly. Finally, I couldn't wait any longer. "Come with me, my love. Feel me close to you." She cried out and began to shake as I reached the end. Then she fell back onto the table. I was sure she had fainted. I gently picked her up and held her in my arms. When she woke up, tears were in her eyes, and I worried I had hurt her. "My love, please don't cry. Did I hurt you?" She sniffled, still crying. "No, Michael. I'm just very happy. I never knew it could feel this way." I started to laugh softly. "Oh, you wonderful woman. I love you so much." We spent the next hour just holding each other. Then we got up and cleaned the kitchen, stopping to hug and kiss in between. After that, we walked to the game room and sat together on the couch. "When will Lisa come home?" I asked. "She is staying with your sister for another night. We have all day and all night just for us." "Oh, that's great," I said, playfully tickling her. She laughed, and when I stopped, she jokingly hit my arm and said, "Stop that. Be good to your woman." I chuckled. "I plan to be very good to you." She looked into my eyes and kissed me deeply. "I just have to ask. Remember when we played games and you wore those short skirts?" She blushed and giggled. "Yes, Michael, I knew what I was doing. I wanted you to take me and make me yours. But like a confused guy, you made me do all the work. My love, I must admit, I was worried about scaring you away. I know, darling, and I love you even more for it. I knew you wouldn't hurt me just to please yourself. I must admit I really wanted you, always will. But no, I love this woman. I told Beth I needed to use the bathroom. On my way back, I heard her on the phone. Oh my God, Mel, it's so much more than I thought. I liked him yesterday, but today it's even better. If I had known how wonderful he was, I would have gone for him sooner." Beth giggled. "I know he's your brother, but he's mine now, and I will do whatever it takes to keep him. Thank you for helping me find him. I will always be thankful." I made a noise so she would know I was coming in. Beth looked up. "Here he is. Do you want to talk to him?" She gave me the phone. "It's your sister. Hey, sis, how are you?" I listened to her, then said, "Take care of her." "Who?" I teased, winking at Beth. "Beth? The Beth that lives here?" I chuckled. "Well, I picked her up off the road and gave her a home, so I guess I'm taking care of her." She hit me playfully on the arm, and I laughed, moving the phone away as my sister started to shout. Finally, she settled down. "Mel, I love Beth so much. I will do everything I can to make her and her daughter feel happy and safe. Now, if you don't mind, I want some time alone with my woman." With that, I hung up. Beth started laughing. She jumped into my lap and kissed me deeply. "Oh, my love, I hope you hold me all the time." I growled playfully. "Every chance I get, my love." That got me another sweet kiss. I was so happy with this woman. "So, is there anything else you want to do today besides being held?" I asked with a laugh. "I want to go out on the boat," she replied. "The boat?" I asked. "Yes, just you and me." So off we went. Beth packed a picnic lunch for us. She seemed relaxed now. Once we were on the lake, she told me to go fast, and she held on tight as we sped across the water. I knew a couple of places on the lake where there usually weren't many boats, so I drove there. But when I got there, I saw another boat already was there. I moved to find a quieter spot. Beth took out the lunch she had brought, and we fed each other. After we finished eating, Beth looked at me and smiled. "Stand up," she said. "What?" I asked. "Stand up. I want dessert now." I stood up, curious about what she meant. It was just us, enjoying the day. In that moment, it felt like we were together as one. Once we calmed down, we noticed we weren't alone. Another boat was near us and people were clapping. One woman on the boat said it was amazing. "If you get tired of him, send him our way." Beth stood strong and replied, "The only way you're getting him is if I'm not here," which made everyone clap more. The women laughed and left. Beth started laughing too. I held her close. "My love, you have nothing to worry about," I told her. "Good answer," she said, and kissed me deeply. We got dressed and headed back to the dock. At home, we had a salad for dinner and then went to bed. As we lay together, I asked Beth what would happen when Lisa returned. She usually goes to bed before us and wakes up later, so it shouldn't be a problem, Beth said. "But if she finds out, will it bother you?" I asked. "Not at all. I just don't want to hurt her," I replied. Beth kissed me softly. "We'll handle it as best as we can. You've stolen not just my heart, but hers too. She's never been this open with anyone." We were tired, but we made love slowly, enjoying our strong bond. Then we fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, we woke up and made love again. After having breakfast on the deck, we felt Lisa's absence and decided to go pick her up. We called Mel to tell her we were on our way. As we walked to the truck, Beth got in and looked at me with a playful smile. I frowned because I knew she wasn't wearing any underwear. "If you keep acting like that, I won't be able to focus," I complained. Beth laughed. "Would that be so bad?" she teased. "Only if it gets awkward," I joked back. She moved closer to me as we drove, and her hand gently rubbed my leg. After a moment, I said, "I can't get out of the truck like this." "If you pull over, I can help with that," she replied with a cheeky grin. I remembered a quiet road nearby and drove there. I parked at the end of the road and turned off the engine. "Since you caused this, I think you should help fix it," I said. She laughed and agreed. "Now get out of the truck." I got out and she followed, standing right in front of me. She knelt down, undid my button, and carefully pulled my pants down. She looked up at me, smiling. "You know what to do," Beth said and leaned forward. After a moment, I held her head and started to move. She made happy sounds. It didn't take long before I told her I was close. She changed her position so I could finish. Afterward, she stood up and hugged me tight. "That tastes so good. I want more," she whispered. I lifted her chin and looked into her eyes. "Well then, let's make sure you get plenty," I said. Beth laughed and kissed me. I offered to return the favor, but she said, "If we go back smelling like each other, everyone will notice." That made sense. So we got back in the truck and drove to my sister's house. When we arrived, we walked hand in hand to the door. Halfway there, the door burst open and Lisa ran out to greet us. She hugged her mom and started telling us about her day. My nieces followed, and I bent down to hug and kiss them. After a moment, Beth finally spoke. "I'm really happy to hear you had a great time. Did you miss me a little?" she asked. Lisa gave her a big kiss. "Of course I missed you, Mom. Did you miss me too?" I asked. Lisa giggled and opened her arms for me. I took her from Beth and gave her a hug and a kiss. My sister called us inside while I still held Lisa. I took Beth's hand and we walked inside together. Beth looked very happy to see Lisa so relaxed with me. We talked with George and Mel. My sister seemed really pleased as she looked between Beth and me. I could tell she was glad for us. After my last relationship, it was nice to see her approval. I knew she would say something if things weren't right. Beth had never asked for much and was grateful for what I offered her. I knew she wasn't with me for my money. We spent the rest of the day playing with Lisa. In the afternoon, we went swimming. Beth wore a simple bathing suit this time. We tossed a ball around and Beth gave me a quick kiss on the lips. Lisa smiled at us, which made me feel good. After dinner, we played a board game. Beth wore a short skirt, but I kept checking the time, waiting for Lisa to go to bed. It wasn't that I didn't like being with her, but Beth was really teasing me. Finally, it was time to get Lisa to bed. She wanted my help putting Tucker in when Beth and I were alone in our room. I could hardly contain my excitement. I quickly helped her change, and later we lay on the bed together. It felt amazing. She gasped softly into the pillow, trying not to make too much noise. Afterward, I snuggled up next to her. "Oh, Michael, you made me feel so good. I never knew it could be like that." I smiled and said, I hope you feel the same way I do when you're with me." "Even more than that," Beth said as her hand moved closer. "What do you want to do with that?" "I thought you might want to take charge," I said. "I would love that." Beth sat above me, holding my hand gently, and slowly settled down. We moved together until we both felt good, and she bit her lip to stay quiet. Afterward, she lay down on my chest, and I wrapped my arms around her. Knowing she had to work in the morning, I helped clean us up and made us comfortable for the night. We woke up early the next day and took a quick shower. I asked Beth to help Lisa get ready for school while I prepared breakfast. Lisa came into the kitchen, all dressed for school, and ran over to hug and kiss me. As we sat down to eat, I felt like we were a real family. Everything was normal until Lisa asked, "So, Mom, does Mr. Mike snore?" I almost choked on my eggs and looked at Beth in surprise. She just laughed and squeezed Lisa's hand. "No, honey, he doesn't. And don't be so curious," she said, giving me a playful wink. Lisa giggled and said, "Okay, Mom, I'm just glad you won't have to kick him out of bed." Beth gasped, "Lisa?" Lisa laughed again and went back to her breakfast. I couldn't help but laugh along. Beth pointed her fork at me and said, "Don't you encourage her, mister." Then she winked and continued eating. Kids grow up so fast these days. I thought about how Lisa might hear things from her cousins. Maybe she thought her mom and I were doing similar things. I hoped she didn't know too much about what adults did. There would be time for that later, but she seemed okay with her mom and me sharing a bed, which was a relief. I was worried about how she might feel. After breakfast, I saw my girls off and then waited for them to come back. The rest of the week, we spent our evenings with Lisa and then hurried to our bedroom for a little quiet time together as a family. We were growing closer each day. By Thursday, I knew I didn't want to be away from Beth and Lisa. I had something I wanted to do, but first, I needed to talk to Lisa. After dinner, I told Beth I wanted to chat with Lisa alone. Beth looked curious but said, "Okay." I didn't want anyone to hear us, so I took Lisa to the gazebo in the yard and we sat on the bench. "Lisa, I have an important question for you. If you say yes, you have to promise to keep it a secret. Don't tell Jenny, Missy, or your mom, okay? Can it be our secret?" I asked. "Yes, Mr. Mike, I promise," she replied. "Good. You see, Lisa, ever since you and your mom moved in, I have grown to love both of you. I really love your mom and I want to ask her to marry me." "Is that okay with you?" I said. She squealed and jumped into my arms, hugging me tightly. "Yes, Mr. Mike, I want Mom to marry you." Tears filled my eyes as I hugged her back. "This means Mom and I can stay here with you forever and we don't have to move, right?" she asked. "Yes, sweetheart, forever if your mom says yes," I replied. "Oh, I just know she will. She told me she loves you," Lisa said. "Okay, sweetheart. I plan to ask her on Saturday night. I'll take you, your mom, and all the family out for dinner, and I'll ask her then." "Can you keep this secret for 2 days?" I asked. "Yes, Mr. Mike, I promise," she said, and she did keep her promise. When we went back inside, her mom didn't suspect anything. Later, when Beth thought I couldn't hear, she asked Lisa what we talked about. Lisa said I just wanted to know her mom's favorite color for a gift. Beth looked a little suspicious, but she let it go. That evening, I told Beth I wanted to take her, Lisa, and Mel's family out to dinner on Saturday. Beth agreed that a family dinner would be nice. I called my sister in front of Beth and asked if they could come, and she said yes. This way, Beth wouldn't suspect anything. That night in bed, Beth tried to find out what I talked about with Lisa, but I told her it was a secret. She pretended to pout. Then I gently kissed her until she smiled, and we spent some quiet time together. Later, as she fell asleep, she murmured something funny, but I knew she didn't mean it. I just laughed and hugged her tight. On Friday morning, I sent my daughters off to work and school. Then I drove to a jeweler's shop in Austin. I found the perfect ring. It wasn't too showy, but the diamonds were big enough to show my love for her. I also called the restaurant where we had eaten with Mel and George. It was a nice place with good food, and they had a private room. I booked it for Saturday night. Everything was ready, and I was pretty sure Beth would say yes. Still, you never know until you ask. That night, when the girls got home, I got my usual hugs and kisses. The ones from Beth were warm and full of love. She didn't mention my talk with Lisa again, which made me happy. On Saturday, we spent the day swimming and relaxing. Lisa did a great job keeping the secret. Then it was time to get ready to go out. Beth hadn't moved her things into my room yet, so she got ready in the guest room. I went upstairs to get ready too. Soon the girls came out of their rooms. Beth wore a pretty black dress, and Lisa had on a cute dress they bought during their shopping trip. When I saw them, I whistled. I felt like a lucky guy. I got to take out the two most beautiful girls in the whole state. Both girls giggled on the way to the restaurant. Lisa started to get fidgety with excitement. Beth noticed and looked at her, wondering what was going on. Mel and her family were going to meet us there. We were lucky because we pulled into the parking lot at the same time. We met outside and walked into the lobby. I told the hostess who we were, and she took us to our table right away. Beth looked surprised to be led into a private room and glanced at me with questions in her eyes. I kissed her cheek and told her I just wanted the ones I loved to be together tonight. She didn't say anything more and smiled at me. I had ordered appetizers and the first round of drinks in advance, so they arrived soon after we sat down. We enjoyed the appetizers while chatting and laughing together. We ordered our main meals and chatted about work and school. It was nice to be together. I sat at one end of the table and George sat at the other. Beth was next to me on my right side, and Mel was beside her. The little one, Lisa, was across from them, closest to me. When we finished our main meals, I stood up before we ordered dessert. I said, "I have something to do if you all can wait for a minute." Everyone looked interested except for Lisa, who already knew what I planned, and Mel, who seemed to guess it too. I reached into my jacket pocket to hide the ring from Beth. Then I got down on one knee. Beth gasped when she realized what was happening. "Beth, the love of my life, I kneel before you to ask if you would do me the honor of becoming my wife, so we can spend our lives together with love." Tears filled Beth's eyes, and I noticed her hands were shaking. She nodded first and then said, "Oh yes, Michael, I would love to marry you." I showed her the ring. "As a sign of my love, will you wear this?" I asked. "Michael, it's beautiful. Please put it on my finger." I slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. I stood up and kissed her as everyone at the table clapped. Then Lisa stood up and came over, tugging at my pant leg. I looked down and saw her holding out her arms. I bent down and picked her up. She hugged me tightly, then pulled back a little. "If you're going to marry my mom, does that mean you will be my dad?" I felt surprised, but answered quickly, "Would you like me to be your dad?" Without thinking, she said, "Oh yes, please." I turned to Beth. "And what about your mom? Would she like me to be your dad?" By then, Beth was crying and could only nod. "Well, it looks like we all agree," I said with a smile. "I would love to be your dad, sweetheart." Lisa turned in my arms and shouted to my nieces, "I've got a daddy!" "I have a daddy just like you," said Beth, tears running down her face. I had tears too. I looked at Mel and she was crying too. Even George had a tear in his eye. The three little girls were giggling happily. After a while, we returned to our seats and dessert was brought out. Mel and Beth began talking about weddings. The three little girls shared how excited they were to become cousins. George and I just sat there smiling, proud of the women in our lives. After dinner, we walked to the parking lot. George came over, shook my hand, and offered his congratulations. Then my sister approached me, hugged me tightly, kissed my cheek, and whispered in my ear, "Take good care of her, little brother. She deserves a good man like you. You picked the right one this time." "I will, sis. I promise." When we got home, it was late and Lisa needed to go to bed. Beth and I went to tuck her in. Beth kissed her goodnight and Lisa said, "Good night, Mama." Then I leaned down and kissed her too. She smiled up at me and said, "Good night, Daddy." "Good night, my sweet daughter," I replied, feeling so proud. I gently stroked her hair, then I took Beth's hand and led her upstairs. As we walked up, Beth giggled. "I never thought I would hear that word come out of my mouth," she said. "You're a good man, Daddy." I squeezed her hand with love, surprised to hear that word used for me. "I like it," I said. "I couldn't ask for a more precious daughter. I promise to take care of her and keep her safe as best as I can." "I know you will, my love," she replied. The next morning, we didn't wake up until after 9. We got out of bed, took showers, and put on our clothes. Downstairs, we peeked into Lisa's room, but it was empty. She was already awake. Beth went to the kitchen to make breakfast while I went to check on Lisa. I heard cartoons playing in the game room and walked that way. As soon as I got to the door, Lisa spotted me and came running across the room, jumping into my arms. I wrapped my arms around her and she gave me a big hug and a kiss on the cheek. "Good morning, Daddy," she said cheerfully. I kissed her cheek and smiled. "Good morning, my sweet daughter." That got me another huge hug. I set her down, took her hand, and we walked to the kitchen. She hurried to her mom, giving her a big hug and a kiss. It was hard to believe this was the same shy little girl I had brought home just 2 months ago. After breakfast, Beth asked if I could help with cleaning. I said yes, and she called Lisa to help her. I quickly loaded the dishes into the dishwasher, then went to see what Beth and Lisa were doing. When I came out, I saw Beth carrying a big pile of clothes, and Lisa was following her with even more. I followed them into the bedroom and noticed this was probably their 3rd trip. Beth had spread all the clothes out on the bed. I had a big closet, but only a small part of it had my clothes. My dresser was large, too, with many empty drawers. Beth looked at me and asked, "Where should I put these?" Feeling a bit silly, I teased her, "I don't think they will fit me." She laughed, tapped my arm, and gave me a quick kiss. Then she whispered, "You're a smart Alec." I smiled and showed her the empty part of the closet, saying it was all hers now. I also pointed to the dresser drawers, letting her know I only used a few and that the rest were for her. The master bathroom was big with lots of space. I told her she could put her things anywhere she liked, even if it meant moving my stuff around. She thanked me and said to go downstairs while she and Lisa put everything away. I felt so happy that my daughter was helping my future wife settle into our room. An hour and a half later, Beth was happy that everything was in order. She came downstairs and sat on my lap. After a big, joyful kiss, she asked, "So, Mr. Johnson, when are you going to make me your wife?" I replied, "As soon as possible, my love. You should talk to Mel and plan the kind of wedding you want. Make it as fancy as you wish. Money is not a problem. We have enough," I said. She smiled and replied, "You mean you have enough?" "From the moment you said yes, everything I have is also yours," I said, moving my hand around. "This is our home, not just mine. The money in the bank belongs to both of us, not just to me, and this heart," I said, pointing to my chest, "is only for you." Beth started to cry and buried her face in my neck. "Michael, I don't want you to think I'm marrying you for your money. I love you so much. If I thought you only cared about my money, you wouldn't be sitting in my lap right now," I replied. Beth giggled and hugged me. She looked over at Lisa, who was lying on the floor and watching cartoons. "Lisa, dear, I'm going to show Daddy where I put my clothes. You stay here and watch TV," Beth said. "Okay, Mama," Lisa answered. Beth took my hand and led me upstairs. When we entered our bedroom, she closed the door. She looked around and showed me where she had put everything. A moment later, she said, "Let's go back downstairs before Lisa starts looking for us." Lisa was still watching TV when we got back to the game room. Beth and I sat on the couch and she cuddled up to me during the commercials. Lisa jumped into my lap, smiling at me, then turned back to the TV and leaned against my chest. Beth smiled as she watched her daughter. "I think my daughter likes her daddy," she said. "No, Mama, I love my daddy," Lisa replied, kissing me on the cheek. "I'm happy, baby, because I love Daddy too," Beth said. Life felt wonderful again, even better than before. I had never felt so happy. I had a beautiful fiancé and a precious daughter. That night, when we went to bed, Beth let me show her how much I loved her. We shared a sweet moment together, and then we lay side by side, smiling. "Where did you learn to make me feel so good?" I asked her softly. Beth sat up, looking a little worried. "Michael, please believe me. I've never been like this with anyone else," she said. "I've only been with 2 other men." "Beth, it's okay," I interrupted. "You don't have to bring up bad memories." "No, Michael, you will be my husband. I want to be open with you about my past. I met Lisa's dad when I was young, and we were both new to everything. We were together 3 times before I found out I was going to have a baby. It wasn't a great experience. When I told him about the baby, he left, and I never saw him again. After that, I focused on raising Lisa by myself. There was no one else in my life until I met Gary. At first, he seemed kind, and even though I was unsure about him, he was patient. Our first time together happened just before my mother passed away. After she died, Gary convinced me to move in with him, but then he started to change. When he was sober, he would use me and then just go to sleep. He never made me feel special. No one ever did except you. He did make me do things I didn't want to do, but I didn't like it. And I never let him finish that way. Then you came into my life and everything changed. At first, I was scared of you. But you never did anything wrong. When I arrived, your sister shared some things about you. She talked about how we had both been hurt before. I began to see you differently, and my feelings started to grow. That afternoon, we swam together. I noticed you looking at me when I got out of the pool, and I felt shy. But when I looked down, I saw your reaction. And for the first time, I wanted something I had never wanted before. I wanted you. I've always been shy about showing my body, even to Gary. But the first time I showed you my underwear, I knew I wanted you to see all of me. I don't understand it all, but you make me feel this strong desire. On our first night together, when I asked you to be with me, it was because of that feeling. I have never felt this way before, but I want to be yours. Most of all, I want your love and to love you back. I reached up and pulled her into my arms. Well, my love, I do care about you and will do my best to make you happy. Our wedding was small. Beth didn't want anything special. We got married in the gazebo in our backyard. Mel was Beth's maid of honor and George was my best man. Lisa and my nieces were the flower girls. The only other people there were some of Beth's co-workers and their families, and of course, Jim Henley and his wife. After the wedding, I took my bride to Hawaii for a 2-week honeymoon. The first week was just for us. For the second week, I asked my sister and her family to bring Lisa and join us. Honestly, I really needed the break that having family around gave us. My lovely wife showed me so much love. Beth continued to work for my sister. She enjoyed being around all the kids. She did take 1 year off after our daughter was born. Yes, now I have 2 daughters to love and care for. Next week, we will go to the graduation ceremony for Lisa and Jeannie. They have both grown into wonderful young ladies. As for the money, I still give a lot of it to good causes. For the rest, I have to encourage Beth to spend it on things she needs. She never had much before and is happy with what she has. I never heard from Jenny again. Maybe she found what she was looking for. As for me, the scars she left on my heart are gone. They have healed because of the love from a good woman. I came to this place looking for a new life, and the one I found is better than I ever thought it could be. Thanks for listening to One Infidelity Hit. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop us a like.